100:00:00:066, 00:00:08, 900. Meet Lin Ning, a tiny, adorable little dumpling. At 5 years old, all she wanted was to make friends, her face full of smiles, bright as sunshine. We watch her grow up through a heartbreaking montage. At 8, she became a little more withdrawn. At 10, the light in her eyes began to dim. By 12, she had already learned how to handle it all. At 14, her smile disappeared completely. Again and again, she wrote the same name on the blackboard and gave the same exhausted self-introduction. This was an endless cycle, always the new kid, and now she had to do it all over again. Our girl is packing her bags, getting ready to transfer schools once again. Her parents suddenly drop a bombshell. She will be living with her older cousin for the time being. Because of work, they're always moving. This poor girl has transferred schools nearly 20 times, and now they're leaving her behind like old luggage. At 16, she once again sets out toward a new life, one she never wanted. She feels like a leaf in the wind, with no direction and no roots. Another unfamiliar school, another unfamiliar city, and she is always the outsider, the subject of whispers and stares. Loneliness is about to crush her, and she is tired of fighting it. She is almost ready to give up completely until he appears. That boy is like a beam of pure light, cutting through her darkness. When no one else saw her, he did. And for the first time, she feels a trace of hope. That feeling is too precious. She is willing to do anything to hold on to it. She has finally found a reason to stay. I don't want to transfer schools anymore. Thinking this, she gathers her courage, takes a step forward, and confesses to him, "I like you." And he seems to feel the same way. It is love at first sight. It is a perfect and beautiful memory. But that was the past, and now everything is different. Now, after injuring her leg, she happens to run into him. Her injury is too serious for her to ride her bicycle. He stops, but his expression is cold as ice. He takes out his phone and makes a call. Not for her, but for himself. She cannot help wondering whether he even remembers her. When she tries to talk to him, he brushes her off coldly. "You go to school," he says icily. "My friend will come pick me up." Ouch, that really hurts. Suddenly, a chaotic figure on a bicycle comes speeding down the road. It is her cousin, Lin Bai, who brakes sharply right in front of them. "Touched, aren't you? The second I got your message, I rushed over to find you," he says dramatically. The white-haired boy, Su Sen, replies expressionlessly, "I'm deeply moved." Her cousin finally sees her. "Lin Ning, what are you doing here?" Su Sen looks back and forth between them, confused. Lin Bai casually puts an arm around him. "She's my cousin. Since she's transferring schools, she's staying at my place for now." Su Sen just looks at her, his gaze unreadable. "Forget it," he says. "Don't blame yourself." Then he leaves just like that. Our girl suddenly snaps back to reality. Oh no, she's going to be late for school. She rushes to the classroom, but her mind has already flown far away. She keeps spacing out, worried about Su Sen. So much so that she does not even hear the teacher call her name. Completely panicked, she has no idea what the question is. The teacher's gaze is practically freezing. "You can't answer?" The teacher realizes our girl is completely distracted, calls on her on the spot, and asks if she thinks his class is boring. She panics, stammering and not knowing what to say. But before she can corner herself completely, a blonde girl named Tu Nana suddenly stands up, eager to answer the question for her. Then she recites a perfect textbook answer, practically glowing with pride. When she sits down, she throws our heroine a look as if to say, "That is how you answer, commoner." The teacher warns Lin Ning that if she spaces out again, she will have to stand outside. She obediently promises to listen carefully, her cheeks burning. Finally, the bell rings, and just as she is about to breathe a sigh of relief, the blonde girl slides over to her desk. Lin Ning warily agrees to hear her out. Tu Nana leans in very close and asks the million-dollar question in a low voice. "Are you Lin Bai's girlfriend?" Our poor girl short-circuits instantly, her brain turning straight into mush. She waves her hands wildly in denial, blushing furiously. Tu Nana just smiles, says she was joking, and thanks her for helping her out in class earlier. Then she happily bounces off to clean the blackboard. But her lively attitude is entirely an act. Lin Ning thinks that because of Lin Bai's popularity, someone has finally come to talk to her. But she has already decided to avoid making friends and keep a low profile. Unfortunately, she actually quite likes Tu Nana's personality. But we see Tu Nana's real thoughts, and dear, they're a total mess. She decides that Lin Ning is lying and declares her a rival for Lin Bai's affection, swearing to show her what she is capable of. Speak of the devil, a classmate pokes their head in and announces that Lin Bai himself is here to see Lin Ning. Our girl is shocked. Why would the student council president come all the way to her classroom? Tu Nana sees this and is so angry she nearly explodes, muttering that they are shamelessly flaunting their affection in public. The ones who arrive are Lin Bai and his cousin Senator Su Sen immediately starts teasing our girl until Lin Bai tells him to stop messing around. Seeing Lin Bai being so gentle with her love rival, Tu Nana nearly explodes on the spot. Lin Ning asks why they are looking for her. Lin Bai invites her to hang out after school. She immediately asks whether Su Sen will go too, still thinking about her own mission. He says he will, and her face lights up at once. Later, in the gym, Su Sen suggests playing badminton, but Lin Bai, ever the gentleman, points out that she is wearing a skirt and suggests table tennis instead. His cousin can only sigh over how considerate he is. Our girl admits that she has no idea how to play table tennis. She insists that the two of them play for a while first, claiming she needs to rest, which is the perfect excuse to observe their technique. Su Sen gets inexplicably excited and promises to show his cousin his true strength. He strikes an exaggerated pose. "I'll show you just how powerful your opponent is," he shouts. Lin Bai remains completely unmoved and simply replies calmly, "I'm looking forward to it." The match begins with a dramatic serve from his cousin, and Lin Bai returns it effortlessly. The ball flies back and forth across the table like a bullet. Su Sen struggles to return it, while Lin Bai sharply asks whether he absolutely has to shout slogans while playing. He claims it is his sense of rhythm, but Lin Bai clearly is not buying it. Watching from the side, Lin Ning thinks this does not seem that hard. Oh, sweet summer child. The ball continues flying back and forth at lightning speed. And just like that, Lin Bai wins, then calls out that it is her turn. Now our girl starts getting nervous, realizing that Su Sen is actually a very skilled player. Her only goal is not to get completely crushed. She steps up to the table. Su Sen asks if she is ready to begin. She gives a small, nervous nod. He serves an absurdly slow, high, gentle ball, obviously going easy on her. Even a mini version of Lin Bai complains that he is playing favorites. The ball softly bounces onto her side of the table. She gathers her courage and prepares to hit it back. She does it. She really does receive the serve. But as the ball arcs over the net, she realizes this is much harder than it looks. The table tennis ball flies off. In her panic, our girl crashes straight into the school's ice prince, Su Sen, and accidentally hits him right in the face. Good cousin Lin Bai rushes over in a panic and asks if he is all right. Su Sen clutches his leg, and Lin Bai immediately shifts the blame onto our girl, telling her to go pick up the ball for them. He points out that Su Sen's leg looks badly injured, and our poor heroine starts apologizing nonstop. She is in a total panic, feeling that she has completely messed up and dragged the most popular boy in school into her chaotic life. But Su Sen only looks tired of this whole farce and tells Lin Bai that they should not play table tennis again in the future. Lin Bai helps him up and adds that he also should not ride bicycles. Seriously, what a drama queen. Our girl watches them leave and falls completely into overthinking, convinced that Su Sen hates her now. Watching them walk away only makes her more depressed. But then Su Sen stops, reaches out his hand, and tells her that since she caused this, she has to take responsibility and support him. Just then, a voice cuts through the tension, shouting Lin Bai's name. An overly energetic blonde girl pops out of nowhere, declaring that they are destined to meet. Oh no, Lin Bai knows trouble has arrived. His solution is to dump Su Sen directly onto our girl and run for his life. Brutal. He gives a mischievous wink and slips away, leaving the injured ice prince for our girl to deal with while he escapes his #1 fan. All of a sudden, our girl is supporting Su Sen, while Su Sen glares at the other girl and warns her to stay away, all while looking down at our flustered heroine. Meanwhile, the girls at school are buzzing with excitement. The school's famous academic mentoring program is about to begin. It is said that a senior student and a junior student will be paired up for one-on-one tutoring, which sounds like the perfect opening for high school drama. Our girl listens, looking a little worried. When a list of senior mentors is announced, she sees Su Sen's name at the very top, but she only sighs, thinking that she will be transferring schools again soon anyway. Just then, the same blonde girl pokes her head into the classroom. With a bright, sunny smile, She walks straight to our girl's desk. "Have you decided who you're going to choose?" she asks, leaning in uncomfortably close. Our girl says she has not, but this love rival does not believe her for even a second. "Liar. I'm sure you've already chosen Lin Bai." Fortunately, the teacher arrives and tells everyone to quiet down. He begins class by announcing the details of the academic mentoring program. They will take an exam, and the students with the highest scores will get first choice of their senior mentors. An exam? Our girl is horrified. After class, she goes up to the teacher and asks if she can skip it. The teacher is confused and reminds her that the program is meant to help her improve her grades. But she is firm and insists that she simply does not want to participate. The teacher finally gives in, and our girl breathes a sigh of relief, almost moved to tears. He watches her leave, thinking that she must be Lin Bai's cousin, the one he has heard about. Just when she thinks she has made it through safely, that blonde love rival storms over. "Lin Bai is waiting for you outside." She practically says it through gritted teeth. Our girl tries to stay polite, but the rival grabs her arm, her face full of jealous anger. "Have you two already decided to be partners?" she accuses her. Before our girl can even deny it, Lin Bai himself appears in the doorway, calling her name. He rushes into the classroom, completely ignoring the tension in the room. "Don't shout." Our girl scolds him, try not to attract more attention. Too late. The rival looks like she is about to explode. "Who dares to seduce my man?" Lin Bai leans in toward our girl and offers to be her academic mentor, and she simply replies flatly, "No." The rejection is so cruel you can almost see his heart shatter into pieces. She tries to explain that he is a trouble magnet, and she wants to stay away from all this drama. He strikes an exaggerated pose, trying to drive away his fan club while declaring that his heart belongs to only one person. Then he switches into gentle cousin mode, saying that helping her study is his responsibility. But she does not buy it at all and reminds him that she will be transferring schools again soon anyway. She still wants to continue, but the class bell rings, and Lin Bai has no choice but to rush back to his own classroom. He hurriedly waves goodbye, leaving her standing there. Our girl sighs. Why does he never listen to people? Just then, she realizes the entire class is staring at her. The teacher clears his throat and asks why she is still standing there. She is mortified, quickly apologizes, and hurries back to her seat. As soon as she sits down, she is met with a sea of death glares. This school year is going to be long. In the middle of class, a crumpled note flies over. Our girl catches it in confusion. The note is from the class queen bee, Tu Nana, aggressively asking whether she and Lin Bai have some secret deal. Lin Ning sighs, knowing this is a huge misunderstanding. Just then, the teacher asks for a volunteer to answer, and Tu Nana pulls a ruthless move, grabbing our girl's hand and raising it into the air. But karma comes fast, and the teacher calls on Tu Nana instead. She is furious. She decides that our girl is full of lies. After all, Lin Bai really does come to see her every day. The teacher scolds her for spacing out. Tu Nana quickly apologizes, but it is too late. The teacher sends her out of the classroom to stand in the corridor. She does not even care, thinking that for the sake of her idol, this price is nothing. But before going out, she shoots over a murderous death glare, her hatred practically like a laser beam. Our girl, truly the queen of composure, only thinks, "This has nothing to do with me." Finally, the bell rings. Tu Nana is waiting. In front of her friends, she pretends nothing happened and laughs off her punishment. Our heroine tries to explain things clearly, but Tu Nana will not listen. "Unless you stay away from Lin Bai, I won't talk to you." Our girl can hardly believe this is really happening. Tu Nana screams, "Isn't it true that Lin Bai comes to see you every day?" Having had enough, Lin Ning shakes off her hand. "Believe it or not, I don't want his mentoring at all." She announces this and tells the girl to stay away from her. Of course, who happens to be standing right there and hearing everything? The Ice Prince himself. Lin Ning seizes this opportunity, and Tu Nana issues a challenge. "If you can score higher than me on this exam, I'll admit I was wrong." Our girl simply closes her eyes, completely fed up with this farce. "Whatever," she says, walking away with a heavy heart. Tu Nana is left hanging there, so angry she can barely speak, somehow ending up looking like the villain in the whole situation. Lin Ning watches her leave, a trace of worry flashing across her face. Was she just bullied? The results come out, and Tu Nana shoves her perfect score in our girl's face. "You lost. Happy now?" she says proudly. She demands that Lin Ning keep her promise and not choose Lin Bai as her academic mentor. Our poor heroine only says quietly that she never planned to choose anyone in the first place. The atmosphere in the classroom is so tense, it could be cut with a knife. The broadcast tells everyone to go to the hall to choose their mentors. Nana jumps onto her desk and makes a grand, chaotic declaration. Lin buys mine. No one is allowed to fight me for him. Our girl just wants to live quietly, but Nana grabs her and insists that they go together. She is still excited until Lin Ning bluntly says no, instantly deflating her. Suddenly, the charming blonde Prince Heir sure appears and puts an arm around our girl. That's because Lin Ning and I have an agreement, he announces with a dazzling smile. He smoothly offers to be her academic mentor, making his huge crowd of fangirls wail in despair. Only then does Nana realize that Lin Ning kept her promise, and she suddenly becomes affectionate with her again. Airshire watches them and concludes that Nana must have threatened our girl. He decides to play along and agrees to become Nana's mentor. But in secret, he swears to protect Lin Ning and avenge her. Then he sees another boy drag Lin Ning away. That guy grins and asks her to be his mentor, even joking that he wants to meet her parents, but a cold, orange-haired girl shuts him up neatly, saying she is not interested. The boy instantly falls in love with her sharp attitude. Airshire tells Lin Ning not to worry, that he will help her find someone, and mentions that the top-ranked Su Sen is absent. Our girl has had enough. She shakes him off and says she does not need a mentor at all. But just as she turns to leave, a calm voice says, "Sorry, I'm late." It is him. Su Sen, with silver hair and blue eyes, has arrived. The teacher tells him that he is late and that Lin Ning is the only student left. Our girl's eyes widen in shock. Without the slightest hesitation, Su Sen simply says, "All right." Our poor girl is completely stunned by this proposal. But before she can even process it, another girl rushes in, demanding that Su Sen be her mentor because her grades are better. Su Sen remains as calm as if nothing has happened, reminding her that the mentor's wishes are what matter, and pointing out that our girl does not seem very satisfied with the current arrangement. The pink-haired girl is furious. The teacher also speaks up, saying that he is equally worried about Lin Ning's situation. Now all eyes fall on our heroine. The teacher formally asks whether she is willing to accept Su Sen as her new mentor. She pretends to stay calm and gives a sweet little smile, agreeing. But deep down, she is already screaming with joy. Finally, it is her beloved Su Senator, the blonde girl who abandoned her earlier, is completely shocked. She immediately regrets it, realizing that if she had accepted this little transfer student back then, she could have gotten closer to Su Sen. She stormed off in a jealous huff. Suddenly, a noisy blonde boy threw an arm around Su Sen and told him not to make a move on his cousin. "Wait, cousin." The blonde girl eavesdropping nearby could hardly believe her ears. She immediately ran over and patted our heroine on the back, as if they were old friends. All of a sudden, everything turned into, haha, so we're family after all. It was just a misunderstanding. Our heroine was utterly confused, thinking this was probably another bizarre coincidence. Nana just grinned brightly, as if nothing had happened. But her brother wasn't buying it. He dragged her away on the spot and warned her to stay away from his cousin. He practically hauled his own sister off the scene by force. After the chaos was dealt with, Su Sen formally told our heroine that from now on, he would be her mentor. The teacher also told everyone to return to the classroom for lessons, and the students gradually dispersed. Nana immediately returned to our heroine's side, linked arms with her, and was already ready to start gossiping. Su Sen watched as our heroine hesitantly agreed, noticing that there no longer seemed to be any problem between them. The new friends walked off together, and Nana declared that it was settled. Her cousin asked Su Sen what he was looking at. Su Sen brushed him off, saying he was looking at his cousin, and told him to hurry up and leave. And so the four of them left together, forming a very strange and mismatched little group. Our heroine was completely overwhelmed by the odd, chaotic feeling in her heart. After they returned to the classroom, the teacher flew into a rage, furious over their terrible exam results, and even called out poor Lin Ning by name. She began handing back those humiliating test papers. Nana leaned over to take a look and sighed, "Wow, you really did badly this time." Our heroine simply sighed and resigned herself to it, saying, "It's fine. I'm used to it." Nana tried to be a responsible family member and offered to help her with her homework, but Lin Ning politely refused. The teacher immediately scolded Nana for chatting during class. Our heroine looked at her and thought that Nana was actually quite nice and straightforward. But then sadness came over her. She knew that one day she would have to transfer schools again, so it would be best not to get too close to anyone. She completely zoned out, sinking into a whirlpool of lonely thoughts. A voice called her name. trying to pull her back to reality. When she looked up, Su Sen was standing beside her desk. She was so startled that she nearly fell over. He asked what was wrong, and she quickly steadied her chair, trying to act as if nothing had happened. But he wasn't there for small talk. He pointed at her test paper and stated the obvious. Her grades were poor. Nervously, she admitted that her study habits were a bit inconsistent. He announced that, as her mentor, he would take full responsibility and help her study over the next few days. She tried to refuse, not wanting to trouble him, but he quickly cut her off. He reminded her that he was an honor student. Then came the key point. If she got low scores, he'd be dragged down too. Our heroine was shocked and quickly promised that she would do her best and wouldn't hold him back. But he had already taken charge of the situation, reaching out to pick up her test paper so he could see where the problem was. Her heart sank. It's over. I'm going to disappoint him. All she could do was sit there, preparing herself for the judgment that was sure to come. Just then, Lin Ning popped up and asked what he was doing with his cousin. Su Sen's answer was razor sharp. Tutoring your cousin. Lin Ning glanced at the test paper and gave a wicked smile as he sighed. Looks like she really isn't very good at studying. Tu Nana heard this from the side and was furious. How dare he? Su Sen then showed her the score, an astonishing 12 points. Tu Nana started sweating. Lin Ning reminded her that she had promised to be a mentor, so she shouldn't be so petty. Tu Nana was utterly ashamed and ran off, shouting that she had to go. Her brother rushed in. He announced his arrival and said he had brought their handsome friend Su Sen with him. He immediately asked whether his little sister Lin Ning had come home from school. His mother ruthlessly teased him, saying Lin Ning had been back for ages and telling him not to spend all day flirting with girls. Feeling wronged, he asked whether he was really her biological son, but she simply chased him away. Just then, Su Sen finally spoke calmly and asked where Lin Ning was. Her mother was surprised, wondering how this handsome boy knew her daughter. Her son blurted out that Su Sen had specifically come to see Lin Ning, and his mother's jaw nearly dropped. But Su Sen remained as composed as ever and explained that he had come to provide her with academic guidance. Her mother immediately perked up and admitted that, yes, her daughter really did need help. She told them to go study while she made dinner, and Su Sen politely thanked her. Her brother volunteered to go to Lin Ning's room and call her. He ran upstairs, ready to pass along the message, only to barge in at the absolute worst possible moment and discover our heroine complaining that the toilet was clogged, and who was standing at the bottom of the stairs, witnessing this entire chaotic scene. Su Sen, of course. Our heroine froze in place and met his eyes. She looked down at her lacy pajamas and felt her soul leave her body. Su Sen was completely unfazed and merely gave her a polite little wave. This made our heroine let out an ear-piercing scream, collapsing into pure mortified shame. Lin Ning looked utterly confused and couldn't figure out why she had already taken a bath. Their mother explained that Lin Ning had dirted her clothes while helping wash the vegetables. Lin Ning just called her clumsy, but instead of getting angry, he started laughing so hard his whole body shook. He collapsed onto the floor laughing, finding her clumsiness unbelievably cute, while our heroine just glared at him, unable to laugh at all. But when he saw Su Sen's expressionless face, his laughter instantly caught in his throat. "What's wrong?" Su Sen asked, looking as if he had completely lost interest in dealing with him. It turned out that Lin Ning had been too busy laughing and had ignored Su Sen's question about the physics homework, so he suffered a merciless cheek pinch. Su Sen simply told him to go get the book himself. Meanwhile, our poor heroine had already collapsed on her bed, replaying the horrifying scene over and over again. He had seen her in pajamas. She sank into utter panic, unable to understand why he was even here. Just then, Lin Ning shouted through the door that Su Sen was waiting to help her review. Review? She sat up at once, completely baffled. A few minutes later, she was sitting across from him while he held up her disastrous test paper. Nervously, she explained that she had tried hard, but she just couldn't understand what the teacher was saying. He didn't sugarcoat it and told her bluntly that her foundation was too weak. She lowered her head, completely discouraged. He told her the plan. They would start over from chapter 1. She immediately protested, saying that would be too much work and a waste of his time. She genuinely looked worried that she would become a burden, but he merely gave her a gentle smile and said it wouldn't be. Our heroine froze completely, unable to speak, her heart skipping a beat. Then he took out a study plan made specifically for her. She could hardly believe that he had prepared so much to help her, even marking out all the key points. She needed to focus on studying. Our heroine was so touched that she was practically about to faint. He had put in way too much effort. He immediately got into the zone, starting with her weakest subject, science. He began listing the chemical ions and formulas she needed to memorize and wrote down equations. Then he moved on to physics. But as he continued explaining the basics, completely immersed in it, her brain had already shut down. Lin suddenly grabbed his pen. He gestured for Su Sen to be quiet, looking thoroughly amused, then pointed at our heroine. She had completely drifted off and was staring at Su Sen with a dreamy, love-struck expression. Her brother couldn't help teasing her. "Are you lovesick or something?" She snapped back to reality and immediately smacked him in embarrassment and anger. Su Sen simply sighed, tried to regain control of this chaotic tutoring session. "Enough," he said. "Focus. We'll start with English." Our heroine's face was bright red, and all she could do was nod. The hellish English lesson finally ended. Her tutor, Su Sen, handed her a book filled with words and phrases for her to memorize. He gave her some study advice, but our poor heroine's brain was already close to turning into mush. She reluctantly took the book and promised she would do her best, only for him to immediately announce that it was time for math next. Even this icy tutor looked like he was about to get a migraine, just when things couldn't get any more tense. His phone rang. It was a call for Su Sen, and the caller ID showed only one word, Dad. He excused himself and went out to take the call. After he walked outside, our heroine watched him leave, her expression turning heavy. The voice on the other end of the line carried a threatening tone, sneering that he would remember him. But Su Sen only gave a cold laugh and replied sharply, "None of your business." Then, without saying another word, he hung up, looking completely unaffected. After returning inside, he ended the math lesson and told her to review everything from today because he would check it tomorrow. The blonde little devil Lin couldn't believe she had so many tasks and complained that she still had school homework too. But our heroine clenched her little fists, burning with determination, and declared that she would finish it all. Lin merely ruffled her hair and teased that all those lessons were going to make her head explode. After the session ended, Su Sen stood up to leave. Our heroine timidly thanked him for his help, but this family wasn't about to let him go that easily. They invited him to stay for dinner. Ning Ning looked at him with a bit of hope, but he politely declined, saying he had other plans. However, Lin absolutely refused to accept his refusal. He suddenly lunged at Su Sen and clung to his shirt like a koala. He dramatically shouted for him to stay away, while in reality holding him hostage. Their mother simply laughed it off and insisted that he stay with Ning Ning, adding that the food was delicious. It seemed he would have to stay for dinner after all. At the dinner table, their mother asked Ning Ning how the tutoring was going. Our heroine smiled happily and said Su Sen was an amazing teacher. But the peaceful dinner was interrupted by another phone call, this time on our heroine's phone. She apologized and stepped aside to answer it. It was her mother calling. Ning Ning comforted her in a brave, cheerful voice, saying that everything was fine and that she was keeping up with her studies too. Hearing this, Su Sen suddenly stood up and said he was full, even though he had barely touched his food. Their mother told Lin to see him out, but that little brat was busy stuffing his face, so she changed her mind and told Ning Ning to go instead. Our heroine was completely caught off guard. The two of them walked outside beneath the glowing shadows of the autumn trees. He quietly spoke, seeming to want to ask her something, and she looked up at him in confusion. He asked whether his lessons were boring to her. She admitted that she was still getting used to the new school. Then he mentioned that he had heard she transferred schools often. Our heroine sighed and explained that her parents' jobs made them move constantly. She had already moved a full 20 times. He asked whether she resented them for it, but she only looked at him with absolute sincerity and asked why she would blame them. She smiled sweetly and said that her parents were the most important people to her, so she had to be the one who understood them. "If I don't understand them," she said, her words echoing in the quiet night, "then who will?" Her simple yet profound loyalty seemed to touch something deep inside him. For a moment, he was speechless, and the two of them walked on in silence. After staying up all night, the last thing our heroine wanted to hear was that there would be a test tomorrow. As soon as second period ended, she collapsed face first on her desk, desperate to get a little sleep. But of course, heaven had other plans. The teacher announced a surprise inspection, which meant gym class would proceed as usual. Everyone else in the class was extremely excited, but our poor, sleep-deprived heroine was living through an absolute nightmare. Out on the sports field, the students began lining up for class. Our heroine was practically melting under the sun, while her friend, despite being about to do aerobic exercise, was absurdly energetic. She didn't want to take this gym class at all, but then her friend dropped a juicy piece of gossip. The second years had gym class at the same time. That definitely got her attention. Her friend was already swooning at the thought of seeing her crush, Lin, and our heroine herself couldn't help blushing as she thought of a certain silver-haired boy, only to shake her head hard and throw those thoughts away. Her friend pulled her back to reality and told her to get in line. They hurried over to join the class formation. The teacher announced today's torture, long-distance running, with boys and girls competing in groups. He tried to hype everyone up so they could make a good impression on the school administrators. As expected, her friend whispered that the second years were about to join them. Speak of the devil, and a whole line of handsome boys walked onto the sports field. It was a boys versus girls showdown. And who else would make an entrance but the center of attention himself? Su Sen. When the next group was called, our heroine's friend was overjoyed because she had been assigned to the same team as Lin. But Lin wasn't looking at her. His gaze was locked onto someone else. It was Su Sen, whom he was looking at with eyes full of admiration. And in a chaotic twist of fate, our heroine was actually assigned to the same group as her crush. Su Sen. The teacher called the start, and the race officially began. But our heroine froze completely in place, still processing what had just happened. Meanwhile, her friend had already started cheering desperately for Lin. Before long, our heroine was already struggling, her lungs burning as she couldn't help coughing. She coughed so loudly that even Su Sen heard it. He turned his head. She tried to tough it out and saw that Su Sen was already far ahead. He looked back at her, and a trace of concern flashed across his face. Realizing that something was truly wrong with her, he actually slowed down. Her friend Tu Nana ran up and called her name in concern. Our poor heroine couldn't catch her breath. Tu Nana immediately supported her and helped her stand steady. From a distance, Su Sen watched the scene unfold. Tu Nana asked if she wanted to stop, but our heroine was stubborn. She refused to give up, especially not in front of the school administrators, and more importantly, not in front of Su Sen. As the absolute best bestie, Tu Nana offered to run with her and support her. She believed that a friend in trouble was more important than showing off in front of some boy. We support a loyal queen. But our heroine tried to push her away, not wanting to become a burden. Tu Nana wasn't accepting that at all. "Aren't we friends?" she declared. Our heroine was completely stunned by her kindness. They ran hand in hand together, while Su Sen watched, slightly puzzled. He silently wondered when the two of them had become so close. But a gentle, faint smile appeared on his lips, as if he was happy for them. After the race ended, just as our heroine was about to collapse, a voice reminded her not to squat down. Suddenly, a pair of strong arms held her up. It was Su Sen. She looked up at him, her heart nearly leaping out of her chest. Her cousin Lin watched from afar, completely stunned. Our heroine quickly explained that she had only been out of breath and gave all the credit to her new best friend Nana. Nana proudly announced that this was her duty as a friend, radiating the soul of justice. Our heroine was deeply moved. For the first time, she began to think that maybe she really could have friends. Su Sen gently told her to walk slowly and steady her breathing. She looked up at him, surprised by the concern in his voice. Her cousin also wanted to join in the fun and cheerfully offered to walk with her, but it was already too late. Su Sen had already walked ahead, and our heroine hurried after him, leaving her poor cousin behind. As she walked, she couldn't help feeling that her new life was like a dream. She had a cousin, friends, and a crush walking just ahead of her. But a shadow of doubt quietly crept into her heart. She was afraid that one day, all of this would prove to be nothing but an illusion, and everyone would leave her. The school administrators had no idea about the turmoil inside her and simply watched from the side, casually commenting that the students were truly energetic. Our poor heroine was already exhausted. She hadn't slept all night, and she had just run a brutal 800 meters, but her rest was interrupted by a voice calling her name. It was Su Sen, the school's ice prince. She immediately pulled herself together. He calmly told her that it was time to study. She didn't hesitate for even a second, grabbing her school bag and preparing to go. As the two of them left together, a jealous classmate watched from the side. But when they arrived in front of a huge mansion, our heroine was a little confused. "Wait, why are we at your house?" she asked. He casually dropped a bombshell, saying that his aunt wasn't feeling well, and her cousin had to take her to the hospital. He invited her in, and since our heroine was always good at enduring things, she followed him inside. Studying began, but her mind was already a complete mess. Su Sen watched her struggle and couldn't help letting out a soft laugh. He suddenly flicked her forehead and told her that biting her pen wouldn't magically solve the math problem. Lin Ning was startled. She looked up at him, then slapped herself on the face again, admitting that she had absolutely no idea what to do. He sighed, moved a little closer, and asked which part she did not understand. He pointed out that they had clearly gone over the exact same kind of problem before. As he spoke, he bent over her shoulder and set the book down. The sudden closeness made her heartbeat stumble. He explained the formula, his low voice sounding right beside her ear. All at once, she understood everything, as if a lamp had lit up inside her mind. In a burst of pure, chaotic excitement, she suddenly lifted her head and smacked right into his face. He sucked in a breath from the pain, and she immediately panicked, apologizing over and over for the accidental headbutt. He warned her to remember what they had learned, or else he would get angry. After a while, the room fell quiet. Su Sen looked up from his books, only to find that Lin Ning had completely fallen asleep on the desk. He gently tried to wake her, but then he realized something was wrong. Her whole body was burning hot. He reached out to check and confirmed his suspicion. Poor Lin Ning had a fever. Meanwhile, in another chaotic corner of the city, our new heroine was being accused by this ice-cold CEO of trying to get close to him. She scoffed inwardly, thinking, "Please, stop flattering yourself." He noticed that she did not seem happy about a certain message she had just received. Suddenly, his business partner furiously demanded to know what had happened, his face filled with rage. He shouted, "Was it you who ruined our project with the Kiritani group?" But his friend immediately rejected the idea. They tried to comfort themselves, saying that some young brat who had appeared out of nowhere could not possibly affect a major corporation. The CEO and the heroine sat in tense silence. She finally broke the silence with a sharp remark, saying that his face must really not be very recognizable. She pointed out that the facts were already right in front of them, yet these two clowns still could not connect him to the famous Asahi Kiritani. Her words hit them like a heavy hammer. The CEO curled his lips into a cold smile and agreed that it was time to stop wasting time. He turned to the now panicking business partner, Mr. Nagaoka, and delivered a chilling ultimatum about the now-canceled project, warning him that the future of his entire company was hanging by a thread. The heroine was secretly stunned by his absolute, top-tier power move. Just as he mentioned Director Kyoda leaking information, the CEO took out his phone. The next second, Nagaoka's phone rang loudly. The CEO only sneered and asked whether he wanted to answer the call that happened to be from Director Kyoda. Nagaoka glared viciously at the heroine, blaming all of this on her, before nervously answering the phone. He was immediately hit with a furious scolding from the other end. The CEO leaned closer to her and said in a low voice, "So you do get scared." Then he accused her of using their son to threaten him. She calmly refuted him, saying she was not threatening him, only stating the facts. She argued that wanting her own child to be safe was a normal parental instinct, not a threat. He admitted that she was good with words, but said they needed to solve the problem at its root. She immediately understood that he meant getting rid of her, so she exposed him on the spot, saying he would never do that because their son would hate him forever. He hesitated for a moment, then claimed that their son would be better off without a scheming mother like her. Those words completely crossed her bottom line. She stood up and announced that she now had to seriously reconsider whether she should leave their son with a man who would deliberately plot against his mother. She told him to hurry up because they still had to go buy a dog, then stormed out of the room without looking back. When she walked in the next room, her son Haruto called out to her, "Mom, are you done dealing with that person?" he asked. She gently corrected him, telling him to call that man Dad. But Haruto immediately exploded and refused to call him Dad because he was always trying to separate them. The genuine emotion her son showed left the heroine speechless for a moment, and her heart ached. She asked him if he really hated his father that much. The little boy lowered his head and admitted that it was not exactly hatred. As she thought back on everything, she knew that his father treated Haruto well, but the way he tried to shut her out was unforgivable. They did not know that the CEO had been listening from the corridor the whole time. He turned to his assistant and coldly asked about hiring a live-in child education specialist. The assistant was shocked. The CEO declared that the heroine was not suited to be a mother, and that under her care, his son's future might be ruined. In his heart, the assistant could only think, "Brother, you are not exactly a parenting expert yourself." But the CEO seemed to have already made up his mind, his posture stiff and filled with cold determination. Late at night, the atmosphere on Lin Ning's side was also gradually heating up. She leaned very close and murmured that she felt so hot. Su Sen was almost being forced to melt by her, yet he still tried hard to stay calm as she kept closing the distance between them. He called her name in almost nothing but a breath. Her breathing brushed against him, and their lips were about to touch. The atmosphere was scorching, like an electric current. But just as they were about to kiss, the whole scene shattered like broken glass. Su Sen jerked violently and woke up in bed with no one beside him. He covered his face, so embarrassed he wanted to disappear. Why on earth had he dreamed about something so outrageous? He glanced at the clock, and his shame quickly turned into panic. It was already almost 8 in the morning. He sprang up from the bed, realizing that he was going to be late for school. He hurriedly pulled on his uniform, unable to waste even a second. When he finally made it to school, he was greeted by his best friend, who immediately started teasing him for being late. "What were you doing last night?" he asked with a wicked grin, and Su Sen's face instantly turned bright red. His friend only laughed and told him not to be shy, because they were young and full of energy. Su Sen had had enough of this chaotic energy and told him to shut up. His friend merely pouted and asked why he had to be so cold. But their bickering was interrupted by the arrival of Shi, the popular boy at school. Su Sen greeted him, while his friend was utterly shocked and demanded to know why she was here. Shi simply tossed his hair and said that everyone was looking forward to her appearance, so of course she had to do them the honor of showing up. But then she leaned close to Su Sen and whispered that, actually, she had come specially for him. Seeing that he was looking past him at somewhere else, she asked him what he was thinking about. He brushed it off and said it was nothing while leading them into the classroom. Then they saw her. Lin Ning was already sitting in her seat. Shi's expression immediately darkened. When Lin Ning saw them, she greeted Su Sen brightly and cheerfully. He leaned by her desk with a faint smile and said what a coincidence. This was far too much for Shi. She immediately dragged his friend aside for interrogation. She pressed him about exactly what their relationship was, making it clear that she meant Su Sen and Lin Ning, and that she wanted an answer right now. His friend explained that they were just an ordinary academic mentor and mentee, but Shi did not believe him at all. That's it. So he leaned in and whispered the most chaotic explanation possible. To be precise, it's the relationship between an abuser and a victim. Shi was so shocked that she slapped him outright, and her mind began racing, wondering if they had already progressed to that kind of stage. Her friend only smiled and reminded her that the teacher was coming. Meanwhile, Su Sen was actually giving Lin Ning some feedback, pointing out that her essay score was quite high. Shi and that friend listened in on his comments about her essay the entire time. But Lin Ning was not discouraged. She clenched her fist and vowed to work even harder. The determination in her eyes seemed to make him freeze for an instant. She noticed that he was staring at her and asked what was wrong. He jolted, clearly remembering that steamy dream again. He immediately denied it and insisted that everything was fine. But on the other side of the classroom, another opponent was watching them with a smug smile. Winnie had a bad feeling and asked why this girl was here, because she was supposed to be absent from the essay competition. The blonde-haired girl, Nana, showed a fake but sweet smile and said it was better to let someone more talented participate. She claimed that she had originally managed to avoid the competition, but had been asked to come back to represent the group. Lin Ning's heart instantly sank. This was not good. This could become a huge problem. Then Nana bounced to the front of the classroom and introduced herself as the new essay proofreader. She gave a dazzling smile and asked everyone to take good care of her. Lin Ning, however, was busy swooning over a certain handsome person and completely failed to notice the approaching danger. As the teacher passed by, he said Lin Ning was childish, while Nana was already plotting in her heart, thinking about how annoying Lin Ning was and how she could make her withdraw from the competition. Poor heroine turned to Su Sen with a face full of stress and asked what she should do. But before he could answer, his chaotic best friend stood up. He loudly interrupted the class and called out another student's name. As soon as that person walked in, he saw the heroine standing there, full of presence, as if she controlled the whole room. He tried to act calm, thinking that as her academic mentor, he had to defuse any awkwardness. But before he could even react, a new challenger appeared, practically drooling over his cousin Lin Bai. Lin Bai immediately had an ominous feeling, and honestly, so did we. Nana kept calling his name until he finally could not bear it anymore and told her that was enough. He even pressed her face straight down onto the desk just to make her shut up. But this girl was unbelievably persistent. She stuck tightly to him and loudly declared that he had obviously fallen in love with her. He begged her to stop saying things that would cause misunderstandings, but unfortunately, it was already too late. He shoved her away and yelled at her to stay away from him, while she looked like a puppy that had been kicked. Meanwhile, Lin Ning and her friend were watching with great interest in the background, completely absorbed in this chaotic drama. The pink-haired girl Lin Ning could not help giggling at the disaster unfolding before her. She admitted that seeing Nana's absurd antics made her want to laugh. Suddenly, the Ice Prince, Wei Shun, grabbed her sleeve and pulled her back from the stairs. He gently scolded her for not watching where she was going, and our hearts were about to melt. She shyly thanked him, and the air was filled with an adorable, ambiguous tension. Later, the heroine asked Lin Ning why she was still there, and Lin Ning said she had been waiting for her. Just then, Chaos Machine Nana latched onto Lin Ning and bragged about how Lin Bai had helped her earlier. She was completely convinced that Lin Bai had already fallen in love with her, while poor Lin Bai was truly frightened and sprinting away for his life. She kept shouting after his retreating back, telling him not to be shy, utterly unaware of the situation. Lin Ning, as always, supported her friend and began cheering her on. Nana puffed out her chest and promised that from now on, she would take good care of Lin Bai. This was far too much for Lin Bai. He angrily turned back, yelling at Nana not to lead his precious little sister astray. Then he directly dragged the fantasy-filled girl away, leaving Lin Ning completely confused. Poor heroine just stood there, feeling completely ignored and having absolutely no idea what was going on. After the chaos ended, Su Sen told Lin Ning that she could sit in his seat while he did the classroom cleaning duty. Lin Ning practically floated up to Cloud 9, realizing that she could watch her crush clean the classroom. He called her name, pulling her out of her daydream. She jumped in surprise, flustered and shy all over. He merely looked at her with his signature cold gaze, raised his hand, patted her head, and asked why she was always spacing out. Her face instantly flushed bright red. He told her to go do her homework, then turned around and continued working. She gave a tiny salute, completely enchanted. She sat down, her fingers brushing over the surface of his desk as she thought about how he had once sat here. She could not help resting her head on it, just to be closer to the place where he had been. She took a deep breath, thinking that his scent made her feel at ease, which was both a little creepy and a little cute. But her private little moment was shattered by a voice asking what she was doing. It was Su Sen, and she had been caught red-handed smelling his desk. She shot upright and stammered that she had not been doing anything. He reached out with his slightly cool hand and touched her forehead, and her heart practically stopped beating. He asked if she had a fever again, completely unaware of the cardiac arrest he was causing. He confirmed that her temperature was normal, which made her both relieved and a little disappointed. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, a phone call came into his home. Lin Ning's mother was very worried because Lin Ning still had not come home. We see Su Sen, fresh from the shower, completely panicking after hearing the news. Back in the classroom, the orange-haired girl Airshur arrived, interrupting the moment. Su Sen called her name, and Lin Ning's heart instantly sank. She thought they sounded so close. Jealousy immediately surged up inside her. Airshur teased Su Sen, saying that he really was a diligent tutor. He mercilessly retorted that it was because Lin Ning was too stupid, but then added that he had some good news to tell her. Airshur mentioned that the school had an event, and the prize was tickets to the play he wanted to see. She pointed out that the prize was 2 tickets, making it the perfect prize for a couple. He immediately became interested and asked when the event would begin. She suggested that they team up and win the prize together, while Lin Ning could only stand there and watch the nightmare unfold. He agreed without hesitation, and in that moment, it was as if the sound of Lin Ning's heart breaking could be heard. She could not take it anymore and quickly found an excuse to leave. Su Sen called after her, reminding her that she still had homework, but his attention had clearly already been diverted. Airshire suggested that Lin Bai could teach her at home, basically driving her away. Lin Ning answered quietly and almost fled from the classroom. Su Sen reached out to stop her, but Airshire grabbed his hand, keeping him there. He explained that he was only worried Lin Bai would make her even more confused. Airshire dismissed it, saying Lin Bai was a top student, so it would definitely be fine. But Su Sen interrupted her with a serious expression and said, "You don't understand." Those words made Airshire explode. She questioned whether he cared too much about Lin Ning. The question hung in the air, and for a moment, he seemed to be asking himself the same thing. Airshire waited, hoping he would deny it, but he coldly threw the question back at her, saying that was his business. She instantly panicked and tried to take it back. He cut her off and told her to go home first. She pressed him, asking if he was blaming her. With his back to her, he simply said no. As Lin Ning ran out of school, her mind was filled with how well the two of them looked together. Her phone began to ring. It was the call we saw earlier, with Su Sen answering the phone with a towel draped over his head. Lin Bai started to panic. Lin Ning's phone was turned off, and she was not at Su Sen's house either. His mother immediately grabbed her coat, ready to rush out and look for her. He picked up the phone, trying to trace any possible clue. The news spread like wildfire, and her friend was shocked beyond belief. Lin Ning was missing. She confirmed that Lin Ning had not gone to her place at all, and now she also fell into complete panic. On the other end of the phone, Lin Bai was under immense pressure and told her that everything on his side was already in total chaos. His friend offered to come help search, saying that more people meant more strength. But he immediately refused and told her to stay home because it was already too late at night. Then he hurriedly hung up. She froze in place, as if wondering whether he had just. But then a blush crept across her face as she realized that he was only worried about her safety. For 1 second, she was completely swept up by the fluttering feeling of his concern. But reality soon came crashing down. Where on earth could Lin Ning be? The whole family was now searching through the dark streets. And even worse, they could not get in touch with her parents. They began desperately asking passersby whether they had seen her, but the first person they asked had no idea who she was. They asked another person, only to receive the same answer. Meanwhile, her friend had also gone out alone to search, asking every person she could find. But the city streets were dim, growing emptier with every passing second, and there was no sign of her anywhere. Only lonely streetlights and suffocating silence remained, and the search became more and more desperate. Her friend clutched her chest, her face filled with worry. Lin Bai's mother finally revealed that she had already called the police. He asked with a trembling voice whether she could be in danger. That became the final straw for his mother. She completely broke down, crying out for her precious daughter. Lin Bai pulled his devastated mother into his arms, while she cried and said she did not know what to do. Meanwhile, Su Sen simply stood there in silence, staring solemnly at the photo. Her friend watched this heartbreaking scene from a distance. But just then, a small voice cut through the despair. A little boy said he had seen the girl they were looking for, and everyone turned to look at him in shock. He pointed down the street and said a man had grabbed her and taken her away. What did that man look like? The boy said he looked very fierce, and that the girl might be in great danger. Pure fear instantly swept over everyone. Her mother panicked again, afraid of what Lin Ning's father might do once he found out. She collapsed into her son's arms, completely losing control. Su Sen and their friends could only watch helplessly as their faces turned pale with panic. Just as the fear reached its peak, the scene cut to our girl, safe and sound, apologizing for making everyone worry. She explained that she thought she had lost her phone, so she went back to look for it, only to run in her father's car. It turned out she had simply been with her father the whole time, and her father had no idea how much chaos he had caused. Her mother was not buying it. She exploded in anger, yelling that he should have called them. His excuse was that his phone had run out of battery, and she immediately shot back that he could have borrowed someone else's phone. But he just gave a wicked grin and said he did not remember her number. This man was an absolute menace. She said he could have asked his sister-in-law, but he admitted he did not remember her number either. Her mother was so furious, she looked ready to burst a blood vessel, threatening to tell his older brother everything. He immediately surrendered and promised it would never happen again. Now was our girl's turn. Her mother gently scolded her, saying she should have come home before going anywhere. Tears welled up in our heroine's eyes as she apologized, admitting that she had simply been too excited to see her father. Her mother's anger melted instantly. She pulled her tightly into her arms and finally let her own tears fall too, confessing how worried she had been all along. The entire family was overwhelmed by the emotions of this reunion. Now everything was fine. It had all just been one huge, chaotic misunderstanding. Then her father finally noticed the handsome, silver-haired boy standing beside his daughter. He asked, and this is while sizing him up. Su Sen calmly introduced himself, saying he was a friend and also Lin Ning's academic mentor. They shook hands, while our girl only watched in confusion. Her ex-boyfriend politely took his leave, saying it was getting late. He told our girl he would help her online, but her father practically lunged forward, insisting on seeing him off personally. He grabbed Su Sen by the arm, far too enthusiastic and eager to get to know this academic mentor. Both our girl and Su Sen were completely baffled by his enthusiasm. Just when the scene was already crowded enough, another surprise visitor arrived. It was Lin Bai's father, who had come to surprise his wife. He was all smiles and hard eyes, and the two of them staged an absurdly cheesy reunion in the middle of the living room, forcing Lin Ning's father to cough awkwardly to get their attention. Our girl decided to escape the chaos and offered to see Su Sen out, but her father immediately shouted, "I'm coming too," and tried to follow, unwilling to miss even a second with his daughter's new friend. That man stopped his younger brother on the spot, his voice icy cold. "Idiot, why are you here? Did you cause trouble for your sister-in-law?" The poor guy instantly began sweating and looking for an escape route, but there was none. He immediately squeezed out crocodile tears and wailed for his sister-in-law to save him from his brother's wrath. His wife watched this chaotic family farce completely unmoved, while the blonde child was so angry he looked ready to explode. This family was an absolute mess. Meanwhile, things were much warmer on our girl and Su Sen's side. She told him he only needed to walk her to the door and apologized again for making him worry tonight. He gave her the gentlest smile and told her it was all right, as long as she promised not to act so recklessly again. She immediately agreed with a big, adorable smile. But he looked at her with genuine concern in his eyes and said softly, "You really worried me." Our girl was flustered by his sincerity. He told her he should go, then turned and started walking into the night. Cherry blossoms drifted around him, and as he left, he looked like a prince from a fairy tale. But then he stopped and looked back at her with a conflicted expression, while she simply gazed at him, her heart fluttering softly. The air between them was full of unspoken feelings. At last, she broke the silence and asked if there was something else. He nervously looked away and told her to go inside, so she slowly walked toward her front door. He merely watched her leave, countless emotions flickering across his face. But when our girl opened the door, she saw a shocking sight. Her father was there, and he had a huge black eye, looking as if he had just lost a fight to a lawnmower. Her father explained that little Lin Bai had fallen asleep, probably exhausted after being searched for all night. The next morning, the chaos continued. The little troublemaker woke his father up, practically kicking him on the sofa while shouting that he had gone too far. His father woke up looking completely dazed, only for his son to immediately question why he had come back at all. The child was furious, pointing at him accusingly. But then he noticed the bruise on his uncle's face and asked who had hit him. The entire family instantly fell into an awkward silence. Later, Lin Ning's father pulled her aside and dropped a bombshell. He and her mother had already arranged for her to transfer schools. The next day at school, Lin Bai tried to call Su Sen over to play ball, only to be brutally rejected. Su Sen said he had to tutor Lin Ning, and Lin Bai threw a tantrum on the spot, accusing Su Sen of abandoning him. Su Sen had completely had enough of his nonsense and simply called him dramatic. But as he walked away, Lin Bai stopped him with a piece of explosive gossip. He revealed that Lin Ning might be transferring schools again. The news hit Su Sen like a ton of bricks. Later in the classroom, our girl was lost in thought when a pencil suddenly smacked her on the head. It was Su Sen, standing right beside her desk. He did not beat around the bush and directly asked whether it was true that she was transferring again. She was completely shocked that he knew, and with a sad smile, she confirmed it. Yes, it was true. She sighed, thinking about having to start over again. She said she was stupid and did not understand why she had to work so hard when it all felt pointless anyway. Our poor girl just wanted to focus, but she was so discouraged. Suddenly, Su Sen snatched her pen away and told her to take a break. He grabbed her arm and pulled her up. He slung his school bag over his shoulder and simply said, "Come with me." Our girl was completely confused, and her own school bag was still on her desk. Wait, she stammered, utterly bewildered. But he was already at the door, and he was holding her school bag for her too. She hurriedly grabbed her books and chased after him. They left the school as flower petals drifted around them. "Su Sen, where are we going?" she asked. He said he was just walking her home. She could not hide a trace of disappointment and admitted she had thought he was taking her out to have fun. He stopped and looked at her. "What did you think I was going to do?" She immediately panicked and denied everything. Then he grew serious and asked her directly, "Do you want to transfer?" Her expression darkened. The answer was already obvious. She said quietly that she did not want to cause trouble for her parents, but he interrupted her. "Then what if I said—" He turned to face her, his eyes full of emotion. "What if I said that whether you transfer or not matters a lot to me?" Her world stopped. His words sank deep into her heart, and her heart pounded wildly in her chest. He stammered and asked what she had just said. Our girl quickly changed her words and said it was nothing, but her heart was nearly leaping out of her chest. He grew flustered and told her she had better not transfer. For one moment, she thought he truly wanted her to stay. But no, he brought out the lamest excuse in the world. He had been tutoring her this whole time, so she should at least wait until after the midterm exams and see the results. Then he backed her up against a cherry blossom tree, standing far too close for someone supposedly discussing studying. He instantly panicked, realizing that his words and actions did not match at all. But our girl had already completely fallen for him, her heart pounding like a drum. She clenched her little fists and promised that she would do her very best. Just as the romantic atmosphere reached its peak, her father appeared out of nowhere, looking as if he was ready to commit a crime. He charged straight over and grabbed her. As he dragged her away, our poor heroine timidly said goodbye to Senator Su Sen, try to be a hero, telling her not to look back and to just go with him, hoping to stop World War III. After they returned home, her father was furious and announced that he had decided to take Lin Ning away immediately. He told her mother that Su Sen had improper intentions toward their daughter. But her mother's reaction was absolutely perfect. Not only was she not angry, she was overjoyed, already planning the wedding, and asking our girl how far their relationship had progressed. Her father completely broke down and screamed his wife's name in rage. Her mother simply ran off to complain to his older brother that her husband was treating her like this again, leaving her father alone, fuming with anger. Our girl tried to clear up the misunderstanding, insisting that they were not in that kind of relationship, but her father would not listen at all. He shouted that he had seen what happened by the wall and said young people these days were far too complicated. She desperately tried to deny it, but he had already made up his mind. So she changed tactics and asked if she could at least wait until after the midterm exams before transferring. She claimed that she wanted to see how much she had improved, and more importantly, she wanted Su Sen to see her efforts. Her father looked at her, clearly seeing right through the excuse, but he was also moved by her words. He irritably threw a pillow and muttered that he would have to discuss it with her mother, which basically meant he agreed. The next day, she was happily brushing her teeth and telling her younger brother that she did not have to transfer for now. Her younger brother immediately got nosy and pressed her about what her relationship with Su Sen really was. He even brought up the wall incident and asked what they had done. She told him to brush his teeth properly and mind his own business. Later at school, her friend Nana brought some gossip. Su Sen and Airshire were going to an event at a fancy restaurant. Our girl pretended to be calm and said she already knew. Nana suddenly felt sorry for Lin Bai. She sighed that he liked Airshire so much, but that girl never treated him kindly. Our girl pointed out the obvious. But don't you like Lin Bai? Nana immediately burst into tears and admitted that she did. She had completely fallen for him. What made her angriest was that Airshire clearly did not like Lin Bai, yet she never rejected him either. She just kept stringing the poor boy along. That unfairness made her clench her fists in fury. Our girl tried to be the voice of reason, but Nana was not listening at all. She was convinced that Lin Bai would show up at the event, hiding in a corner and watching them, utterly heartbroken. So she announced her new mission. She had to go to the event and protect Lin Bai. When our girl called her out, she immediately grew defensive and insisted it was a dangerous situation. Our heroine did not care at all, but Nana had a plan. She told her she would go alone and not to follow her. because, of course, she was going to drag her along anyway. The two of them arrived at the ultra-fancy Maria art restaurant. A receptionist welcomed them to the annual event, and Tu Nana excitedly asked where they could sign up to join in. But there was a problem. The receptionist told them the event was only for partners, one man and one woman. Without hesitation, Tu Nana grabbed her twin tails and used them as a mustache, declaring, "I'm a man." The receptionist's expression said it all. "You are lying." Just as the awkward silence was becoming unbearable, a new player entered the scene and asked if he was late. Just like that, the entire room's attention instantly turned to him. It was Su Sen. The orange-haired girl looked as if she had seen a ghost and stammered, "Didn't you say you were too busy and weren't coming?" Su Sen simply smiled calmly and said he had been worried she would feel awkward alone, but luckily Lin Bai was here, so he could just sit nearby and watch the show. Oh, the drama. Lin Bai was not having it. He turned to the girl, his voice icy cold. "So you invited Su Sen first?" She could not even form a complete sentence. Lin Bai's face immediately darkened. He said quietly that it did not matter whether he was there or not, then turned to leave. As he stormed away, the heartbreak was plain to see. But before he could complete his dramatic exit, Su Sen grabbed his arm and stopped him in place. "Let go." Lin Bai was furious at that moment, and even the other girls were startled by the sudden tension. The orange-haired girl hurriedly tried to fix things, apologizing and saying she had messed up and failed to explain clearly. But Lin Bai cut her off, telling her not to apologize, and admitted that he had simply overthought things. After saying that, he turned his back and really left. This time, the entire room fell into chaos. Tu Nana shouted after him, telling him to wait. But our girl Lin Ning only watched her friend leave. The orange-haired girl now looked defeated as she asked Su Sen whether they should continue. But our boy had completely had enough of this disastrous gathering. "No," he said, "I'm suddenly tired." Absolutely ruthless. He grabbed our girl Lin Ning's hand and said, "Let's go," leaving the other girl to finally realize that she had been lying to herself all along. She watched in utter shock as he left with Lin Ning. Her breakdown began. She had once thought he belonged to her and that no one could take him away. She remembered their childhood, always believing she was the only girl in his world. She had never even imagined that she would need to fight for his attention. But now, this new girl had appeared, and all she had left were questions. When had she become the extra in her own love story? Meanwhile, her friends tried to bring her back to her senses, pointing out that her phone had been ringing nonstop. Later that night, Su Sen walked our girl home beneath the beautiful cherry blossoms. He told her it was fine, but she was still worried about the trouble with Lin Bai. She looked up at him, her eyes full of concern. But he simply turned to leave. She called out to him, not wanting the night to end on such a bad note. He looked back with a faint smile and reminded her that the grades would be released tomorrow. Our girl was confused by the sudden change of subject. He only looked at her with those gentle, expectant eyes, and she blushed. The mood felt different. "What if I did badly?" she asked nervously. In an instant, he was already in front of her, both hands on her shoulders. "Impossible," he said softly and seriously. He told her that he had taught her himself, and besides, she was not stupid. That absolute confidence completely flustered her, while he simply continued staring at her, the tension between them crackling. For 1 second, it looked as if he was about to kiss her, but he pulled away at the last moment. Both of them blushed and awkwardly looked away. It was too cute. The street was quiet as he walked away beneath the lonely street lamp, lost in his own thoughts. Suddenly, he stopped. Lin Bai was there waiting for him. He was no longer alone for long. "About today," Lin Bai began, looking utterly miserable. "Su Sen, does my face still look okay?" "Sunontai sin vos startlet." What happened? Lin Bai burst into a chaotic rant, blaming everything on Tu Nana. He told an absurd story about how they had fed stray cats, how Tu Nana refused to leave, and then how a damn cat scratched his face. Su Sen calmly suggested that he might need to get a rabies shot. Lin Bai immediately freaked out, terrified of injections. Seeing his friend return to his usual dramatic self, Su Sen smiled, figuring he was probably fine now. He put an arm around the still complaining Lin Bai and started walking him home. Lin Bai was still angrily shouting that he had not even finished telling his tragic story. The next day at school, our girl saw the two of them walking up the stairs together, looking like good brothers again. She watched them for a moment, then ran toward them, calling out, "Senior!" She was almost trembling with excitement, a huge smile on her face. "I'm so happy," she said, looking up at him with pure, unmixed joy. The next day at school, A cheerful friend greeted our girl Lin Ning, but our heroine was not happy at all. In fact, she looked as if she had just crawled out of a grave. Her friend immediately grew worried and asked why she looked so lifeless. The girl explained that the midterm exams were coming up, and she had been so nervous that she studied all night. Her top student friend did not really understand and asked if grades were really that important. Lin Ning immediately fired back that it was easy for a natural genius to say that. She would never understand the pain of someone who learned slowly. Her friend only sighed, thinking that people never appreciated what they had. Just then, another student poked their head in and announced that someone was looking for Lin Ning. "Who is it?" our sleepy heroine muttered. It was one of the popular girls at school, Su Ji, along with her little group. Our girl cautiously asked what she wanted. Su Ji smirked and asked if she was worried about the exam. "I have a way to help you," she said, "but there's one condition." Oh, that sounded suspicious. Our girl's eyes widened. In the corridor, her friend watched the entire exchange, clearly not pleased. She immediately blocked Lin Ning's way and demanded to know what that had been about. Our girl hurriedly lied and said it was nothing, but she was saved by the bell. Literally saved by the bell. She used that as an excuse to flee back to her seat, but her friend did not believe her at all. She knew something had to be wrong. That night, our poor heroine was completely exhausted and collapsed on her bed, but her mind would not stop racing. Her head was full of Su Ji's suspicious offer, as she tried hard to force herself to hurry up and sleep. Then, suddenly, a surge of motivation rose in her. She was going to do well on this exam through her own efforts. She returned to her desk to study, but her phone suddenly vibrated. An unexpected call interrupted her last-minute cramming. When she saw the caller ID, her eyes widened. It was Su Senator, the campus prince, was actually calling her this late. She hesitated. The strange conversation from earlier that day flashed through her mind, and her hand trembled as she reached for the phone. She could not help wondering why he had to call her now, of all times. But in the end, she still pulled her hand back and decided not to answer. "I have to focus," she told herself, trying to push him out of her mind. The next day at school, a tall shadow fell over her. It was Su Senator. He asked her bluntly why she had not answered his call yesterday. Our girl looked terribly guilty and stammered that she had just been busy studying. His gaze softened. He told her not to be nervous and pointed out that her face looked very pale. Then he gently patted her head. Our girl's brain instantly short-circuited, and all she could squeeze out in a tiny voice was, "Okay." The bell rang, breaking the tension. After school, while she was packing up, Su Sen suddenly picked up her backpack. "Let's go," he said. "I'll take you somewhere." Completely confused, she hurried after him and asked where they were going. He only gave her a heart-stopping smile and said, "Just follow me." How could she possibly not follow him? But she was so lost in thought that she almost walked straight into traffic. He shouted for her to be careful. The panic on his face was completely real. Just as a car screeched past, he yanked her back from the roadside. He pulled her into his arms, and she was completely frightened by the close call. He breathed a sigh of relief, then started scolding her. She looked so sad after being called an idiot. That tiny pout was just unfairly cute. Seeing her expression, he sighed and said, "I'd better hold your hand." She began stammering his name, but he cut her off firmly. "Don't talk." And just like that, he held her hand, leaving her bright red and completely speechless. He led her all the way to an amusement park. She was utterly stunned. "Senior Su Sen, the exam is tomorrow. Why are we here?" She even said he was too cruel, knowing perfectly well that she should be studying and still bringing her to such a fun place. But he simply smiled and explained, "If you keep studying nonstop, your brain will turn to mush. You need to relax." She playfully retorted, "You're the stupid one," then winked mischievously and ran off. He just watched her run away with an amused smile on his face, while she looked back and shouted that it was nothing. The roller coaster plunged down the track, and our girl let out a scream of pure joy. She turned to Su Sen and told him to properly admire the incredible view from the highest point. He tried hard to look calm and gave a perfunctory hum, but his expression had already betrayed everything. However, our girl was completely absorbed in the beautiful sunset and thought the scenery was absolutely breathtaking. She was having the time of her life, while our poor boy looked as if his life was about to flash before his eyes. When the roller coaster plunged again, Su Sen let out a scream loud enough to shatter glass, while our girl only watched the total chaos and laughed nonstop. When they finally returned to solid ground, she could not help teasing him. "Senior Su Sen, I never knew you were such a coward." She asked if he was okay, but he was clearly still recovering from the near-death experience. He immediately tried to salvage his pride, insisting that he was fine, and even asked what she wanted to ride next. But she gave him that look. You know, the one, the "I know you're lying" look. "I'm fine," he protested a little too loudly. He quickly changed the subject and told her she could choose the next attraction. He pretended to think for a moment, then locked his eyes on the worst possible choice. He dramatically pointed at the haunted house. "Sir, are you trying to prove something?" Our girl, of course, looked completely confused. The moment they stepped inside, she was already clinging tightly to his arm, eyes squeezed shut as they passed a wall covered in bloody handprints. He teased her, telling her to open her eyes or there would be no point in coming here. But she was not buying it at all. "No, it's better with my eyes closed. Senior Su Sen, you lead the way." He just smirked, clearly enjoying how scared she was, and then agreed. Suddenly, something jumped out. Our girl completely panicked, waving her hands wildly in the air and almost leaping straight onto his back, clinging to him like a human backpack. He held her steady, his voice low and soothing. "Don't be scared. I'm here." He pointed out that the severed hand on the ground was just a prop. She stammered, trying to save face. "Oh, I knew it was fake. I was just startled." Of course, she knew. She quickly turned the tables and praised him for being brave. "But Senior Su Sen, you're amazing. You're not scared at all." He puffed out his chest, basking in the praise and trying hard to look manly. But our girl was too ruthless and went straight for the kill. "But you were scared on the roller coaster earlier." He froze on the spot. He cleared his throat, trying to regain a little dignity. "Everyone has weaknesses. Don't set your expectations too high." Just then, a voice echoed through the corridor. "Congratulations to customer number 017 for winning first prize." They checked his ticket. He had won. Our girl whispered, "It's us. Looks like we won't be finding the exit anytime soon," holding up the winning number. A staff member appeared and congratulated them on receiving a special mission. He was holding a lunchbox. An entire team of staff emerged from the shadows and asked if they were excited, while Su Sen simply asked expressionlessly, "What's the mission?" He had completely lost interest in playing along. The man explained dramatically that the mission was to deliver the food to someone named Akumi at the very center of the haunted house. Our girl's face cracked with fear. The center of the haunted house. Su Sen found the whole thing very strange. "Akumi?" he asked in confusion, feeling that something was seriously off. He told her not to be afraid, and then they continued deeper into the darkness. They arrived before a huge, ominous door. It creaked open, revealing another long, gloomy corridor, and in the middle of a pile of skeletons sat a figure in a red dress. "We're here to deliver your meal," Su Sen announced calmly. Our poor girl hid behind him, trembling so badly she was practically shaking all over. The figure slowly raised its head, revealing long black hair covering its face. Lin Ning's grip on his shirt tightened. Then the ghost revealed a very masculine face and asked, "Little girl, am I that scary?" He began walking toward them, and our girl shrank back in terror. She took a step back, already ready to turn and run. "And no," she forced out the words in a shrill voice. The ghost actor looked offended. "Then why are you in such a hurry to leave?" The two of them froze there in awkward silence. A sly look appeared in Akumi's eyes. "Are you two a couple?" They shouted no, at the same time, their faces turning bright red. "Then why are you holding hands so tightly?" he pressed, lowering his gaze and pointing. They looked down and discovered that their hands really were tightly clasped together, as if they were holding on for dear life. They immediately flung each other's hands away as though they had been burned. Lin Ning tried to end this nightmare. "We're not a couple. The lunchbox has been delivered. We're leaving." But the ghost looked genuinely sad. "Don't go, okay? Talk to me for a while." Our girl looked back, completely baffled. "Youth is wonderful," Akumi said with a melancholy smile. He continued his strange monologue. "Fresh air, sunshine, and hope." Su Sen could not help thinking that this guy was way too weird. Lin Ning looked equally frightened by the actor's immersive performance. Then things became even stranger. Akumi moved closer and placed a hand on Su Sen's shoulder. "You know, I used to have those scents too." Our girl could tell that he was acting abnormally. Suddenly, a terrifying figure in a long white robe blocked their way. They were trapped in a horrifying room, with bloody handprints smeared all over the walls. Even a man's long robe was covered in blood. Su Sen asked him what had happened, but then hurriedly told our girl to get out of there. Just then, a bloody bone clattered to the floor. This haunted house was starting to feel a little too real. The ghostly man picked up the bone, ready to swing it down. But the atmosphere suddenly shifted completely, and Su Sen actually asked her cheerfully if she was hungry, only to be struck directly on the head by the bone. Our girl screamed his name in horror. She watched in terror as he collapsed to the floor. The eerie ghost grabbed her from behind and whispered for her to stay and keep him company. She panicked, completely unable to understand what had happened to Mr. Ikumi, the haunted house actor. The next second, she and Su Sen had been tied up back to back. Mr. Ikumi announced that he was going to start working again, which sounded wrong from every possible angle. Our poor heroine was terrified. If she shouted for help, what would this lunatic do to the unconscious Su Sen? The kidnapper leaned close and told her not to be afraid, which was not comforting in the slightest. She finally broke down and shouted, demanding to know what exactly he wanted to do to them. His answer was that he only wanted someone to stay with him in this lonely graveyard. Our girl was completely speechless at this chaotic turn of events. He began rambling on, saying that he had worked here for 8 years, and every day he just stood here, with a heart of pure gold. She asked him, "Mr. Ikumi, are you lonely?" Her question stunned him. He softly admitted, yes. Our girl, ever practical, suggested that if he did not like this job, maybe he should change to another one. He complained that he had tried, but this was the only job he could tolerate. Her reaction was practically saying, fine, but what does that have to do with kidnapping us? He only screamed that he wanted them to keep him company. This guy had completely lost it. His fingernails suddenly grew into terrifying sharp claws. She begged him not to get worked up, but he collapsed against a tombstone, crying out that no one had even the slightest sympathy for him. This was high-level emotional blackmail. But just then, Su's son opened his eyes. He was awake. Our girl immediately breathed a huge sigh of relief. He calmly told her not to be afraid, because he had already called the police. How on earth had he done that? He had used her phone, and that phone was now in his hand. Our girl was shocked. She had not even felt him take the phone. This man was simply a strategic genius. He explained that he had thought Ikumi was suspicious from the beginning, so just in case, he took her phone and hid it. He apologized, saying that he had only meant to bring her out to relax. But she told him not to blame himself, because she had had a lot of fun today. Hearing that, he blushed. She leaned against him and said that as long as he was here, she was not afraid at all. A crowd had already gathered outside the haunted house. News that students had been kidnapped inside had spread. Before long, the police arrived and escorted Mr. Ikumi out of the building in handcuffs. They thanked Su Sen and our girl for their cooperation. Watching that sad man being taken away, she could not help feeling a little sorry for him. Su Sen, however, felt no sympathy. He coldly pointed out that there were many lonely people, but they did not resort to kidnapping. His words made her wonder whether he, too, was just as lonely. A police officer kindly offered to take them home, and they accepted. They got into the police car, and our girl was so excited about riding in a police car for the first time in her life that she was practically trembling. The car suddenly lurched forward, and Su Sen's whole body suddenly tilted over, his head landing right on her shoulder. She called his name in a panic. Being this close, she could not help noticing that his hair smelled really nice. Our girl's inner world had completely collapsed. The police officer driving saw this adorable scene through the rearview mirror and simply smiled softly. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, her mother was already furious, shouting about where on earth she could have gone. Lin Bai ran in with good news. Lin Ning had finally replied and was on her way home. Her mother was probably relieved for about 2 seconds. Then her face twisted into pure rage, and she swore that she would punish our girl the moment she walked through the door. Her brother tried to calm her down, but it was no use. Her mother had fully entered battle mode. The house was quiet and dark, and the only sound was the ticking of the clock as time slowly crawled by. Finally, the front door creaked open, and our girl Ning Ning tried to sneak in as silently as possible, but it was completely useless. Her mother and brother were waiting for her, and neither of them looked happy. "Ning Ning, look what time it is!" Her mother screamed angrily hands on her hips and radiating pure fury. Our poor heroine froze in the doorway, terrified. She quickly apologized and explained that she had gone to the amusement park with Su Sen. But that was the wrong thing to say. The crisp sound of a slap echoed through the room. Ning Ning was completely stunned. Her slapped cheek burned, and she could not believe that her mother had actually hit her. But her mother's anger instantly disappeared, replaced by pure panic and regret. "I am sorry, Ning Ning. I was too anxious. I didn't mean to." She grabbed our girl by the shoulders, tears welling in her eyes. "I worried all night, and I couldn't get through to your phone." She had been afraid that something terrible had happened. With her kind heart, Ning Ning immediately tried to comfort her mother and said she understood. As a result, this only made her mother burst into a full dramatic breakdown, crying that she could not believe she had actually hit her. Seeing her mother collapse like that, Ning Ning quickly made a decision. She would not mention the whole kidnapping fiasco. That would only make things worse. The next day at school, our girl escaped to the rooftop to get some air. She just wanted a moment of peace when a familiar voice called her name. It was Su Senator. She asked how he knew she was here. He only smiled and said Nana had told him where to find her. She tried to act relaxed, saying she just wanted to get some sun. She gave him a bright, cheerful smile, trying hard to hide all her worries. She playfully stood on tiptoe and leaned closer to him, making him blush fiercely. "Are you sick?" she asked innocently. "Your face is a little red." He completely panicked and stammered that he had just climbed a few flights of stairs and was hot. She decided to let him off and instead changed the subject to the midterm exams starting tomorrow. He asked if she was nervous. She looked away, and her smile gradually faded. "I'm not nervous. I am scared." He looked at her in confusion and asked what there was to be afraid of. He gently patted her head, trying to comfort her. "It's just an exam. If you don't do well this time, there's always next time." But her expression darkened. What if I said there is no next time? He had no idea what she meant. Then she dropped the bombshell. "After this exam, I have to transfer schools again." His entire world seemed to stop. He could only stare at her in utter shock. Afterward, she returned to the classroom, only to find someone waiting for her. It was that blonde love rival, and she had been waiting for a long time. Ning Ning immediately cut her off, saying that she had already made herself clear last time and did not need her help. But this love rival did not accept rejection. She shoved a sheet of paper in front of Ning Ning, revealing that it contained the exam answers. "This is your only chance," she insisted. But our girl was not buying it at all. "I don't need it," she said firmly. Then, with one fierce motion, she slapped the paper right out of her hand. The midterm exam answers flew out and landed on the floor. "Don't worry," Ning Ning told her coldly. "I won't steal Su Sen from you." The love rival scoffed and became arrogant. "Are you even qualified? How long have you known him?" Ning Ning simply endured the blow, knowing that her time with Su Sen was almost over anyway. "Can you leave now?" Her voice was full of exhaustion. The love rival snorted, called her a jerk, and stormed out of the classroom. Ning Ning was left there alone, as if the weight of the entire world were pressing down on her shoulders. Outside, the boys had already grown impatient. "Why are you taking so long? I am starving." Lin Bai complained, but Su Sen, born to be protective, immediately told him to shut up. "Shut up. Don't rush her." Lin Bai was stunned by his friend's sharp tone. Just then, Ning Ning came out, looking completely dejected. But their chaotic best friend Nana had a plan. "Lin Ning, get your butt up," she shouted. Our girl was completely confused. "I want to ride on Lin Bai's bicycle," Nana announced. "You go ride on Su Sen's." She was playing matchmaker for other people, and she was not being subtle about it at all. Lin Bai was absolutely stunned by her and called her a pig, but she just jumped onto his bicycle with a mischievous smile. At the same time, in the empty classroom, that blonde love rival secretly slipped back in. She passed by Lin Ning's desk and saw that the answer sheet was still lying on the floor. It would be such a waste if it were just thrown away, she thought, as a sinister idea took shape in her mind. She picked up the answers, watched from the window as Lin Ning immediately left with Su Sen, and a malicious look spread across her face. During an important exam, all the students were completely focused. The teacher patrolled the aisles like a hawk, making sure no one tried anything suspicious. However, our girl was doing well this time. Thanks to senior Su Sen's tutoring, she genuinely knew the answers. But when the teacher walked past her desk, he found something on the floor, and his eyes immediately narrowed in suspicion. He bent down and pulled out a folded piece of paper, a typical cheat sheet. Our girl instantly went cold all over. She had been framed. She immediately stood up and pleaded, "Teacher, that isn't mine." He ignored her and unfolded the note with a stern expression. His eyes widened in shock. "Are you sure this isn't yours?" he asked, his tone full of accusation. She shook her head desperately and insisted that it was not hers, but the teacher did not believe her at all. "It was found under your desk," he said it coldly. Then he began lecturing her, saying that character mattered more than grades, condemning her before even investigating. Our girl could not hold back anymore and shot to her feet. "Teacher," but he only looked at her in disappointment. "Are you still going to insist that this isn't yours?" Trembling with anger and grievance, she screamed that the thing had never been hers from the beginning. And right then, the real villain, Ershur, cut in at just the right time, smugly saying, "You still dare to lie?" Our poor heroine tried to explain that she had not cheated, but it was no use. The teacher had already made up his mind. Before long, a notice was posted for the entire school to see. Lin Ning had been judged guilty of cheating, and all her subjects were marked with zeros. A crowd immediately gathered, and the whispers and stares pierced her like knives. Our girl stood there, heartbroken and alone, unable to understand why no one was willing to believe her. Suddenly, a comforting hand landed on her shoulder. It was her best friend, who whispered, "Don't be sad. I believe you." Our heroine tried hard to put on a strong face and said, "I'm Fina." But Ershur watched from a distance, practically radiating smug satisfaction. Her friend could not stand the injustice and shouted at Ershur for having such a terrible attitude. But our girl pulled her friend back, not wanting the scene to get any worse. Ershur merely scoffed and said she could not be bothered with them. That was the last straw. Our girl walked straight up to her. "I told you I didn't want the answers, so why did you put them under my desk?" Ershur only laughed, finding the whole thing absurd and amusing. "If not you, then who?" she sneered, mocking her for still pretending. Then she twisted the facts, admitting that she had given her the answers, but claiming our girl had secretly taken them anyway. This snake was truly shameless. Faced with such blatant lies, our poor girl completely broke down and started crying. Later, the group went on a barbecue outing, hoping to cheer themselves up. Su Sen began assigning tasks and kept our girl by his side. Another girl, Nana, was very unhappy about being sent to buy groceries. The boy she liked immediately noticed her pouting. She complained that she did not want to go alone and laid on the guilt as thickly as possible. Of course, he immediately gave in. "Fine, fine, I'll go with you." What a hopeless romantic. Meanwhile, Su Sen could tell that our girl was still terribly upset about the exam incident. He asked if she was okay, and she forced out a tiny smile, saying she was fine. But she clearly was not. She sat alone on the picnic mat, and a kind Annie walked over, saying she had heard about what happened at school. She offered to go talk to the teacher, but our girl politely refused. She forced herself to lie, saying she did not care about getting zeros because her parents never care about her grades anyway. The Annie looked at this obedient child, trying so hard to act strong, and her heart broke. All she could do was watch her with sympathy. On the other side, another pair were happily grilling food. She fed him a bite of her family's secret recipe. They acted sweet and adorable together. The Annie asked Su Sen what was going on with them, and he simply played dumb with a charming smile. Then he took a freshly grilled skewer and walked over to our girl. She accepted it, and in that moment, his simple kindness made her feel a little better. The scene was so sweet that the poor Annie, watching these two budding romances, felt like a complete third wheel. She sighed dramatically, clutched her chest, and thought to herself, "Honey, I miss you so much." After they finished eating, our girl told Su Sen that she wanted to be alone for a while. She walked away, and he watched her leave. But he had long since seen through her act. He knew she was still suffering from the humiliation, and he made up his mind to find a way to help her. Nana saw them and immediately began complaining that she had been working the whole time. She grumbled angrily that she and Senior Lin had exhausted themselves picking up trash, while his mother kept ordering everyone to do this and that. Our poor heroine did not even know what to say. But Lin Bai's mother shot over an icy death glare, and Nana immediately realized she had said the wrong thing, quickly bowing and begging for mercy. Lin Bai truly lived up to his reputation as a flirt, merely blinking gently from the side. His mother gave a sweet smile and said it was fine, but her inner monologue had already turned chaotic, already calculating what would happen to Nana for talking badly about her behind her back. Nana was practically breaking out in cold sweat, realizing that the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law drama had started way too early. After that awkward encounter, everyone squeezed into the car. The ride back was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Except for the two boys in the front seats, everyone radiated pure tension. Nana decided she could not take it anymore and had to break the terrifying atmosphere. She let out a dry laugh, trying to lighten the mood. Then she immediately pushed our girl into the spotlight, asking where she and Senior Su Sen had gone. Su Sen was caught off guard and pretended to be absorbed in a mobile game. His face turned as red as a tomato. Our girl was just as flustered, unable to form a complete sentence in her mind. But Nana had a clear goal and leaned in to ask whether Su Sen had said anything important. Lin Ning denied it, but Nana did not believe her for even a second, while the mother in the driver's seat silently expressed her disapproval. Nana continued exposing her, saying, "You were fake smiling all day. Did you think I couldn't tell?" She became serious and revealed that she had already asked her father to report the cheating incident to the Minister of Education in order to clear our girl's name. Lin Ning was completely stunned. She could not believe Nana would go that far for her, and her heart melted. Even the mother seemed touched, thinking that Nana's loyalty was definitely a plus. Nana continued insisting that this was not Lin Ning's fault, because Ershur had framed her. Our girl panicked and quickly reached out to cover Nana's mouth so she would stop talking. The mother's eyes widened in surprise at the sudden commotion. Meanwhile, at Lin Ning's home, the phone rang. Her mother answered the call, but the news on the other end completely shocked her, leaving her almost unable to process what she had heard. Her husband, who had just finished showering, asked what was wrong. She relayed the heavy news. The school had called to say Lin Ning had been caught cheating and all her exams had been given zeros. Her father immediately said that was impossible. Elsewhere, that Snake Ershur herself was waiting in the school corridor. When she saw her target, she sweetly called out Su Senior. She told him she had something to ask him, but he went straight to the point and questioned whether she had put the answers on Lin Ning's desk. Ershur played dumb and asked what he meant, but the accusation hung heavily in the air. Reality hit her like a truck, and she immediately became defensive, sharply saying it was all Lin Ning's fault for not resisting temptation. But Su Sen interrupted her and said he was too disappointed in her. The expression on his face said everything. Ershur lost control, screaming that he should be disappointed in Lin Ning, not in her, and that our girl was now framing her. Su Sen had heard enough and roared, "Shut up." The force of his voice made her freeze instantly. She was completely speechless. He turned his back to her, his voice cold as ice. "I have nothing to say to you." With that, he left. She called after him in despair, asking what he meant, tears welling in her eyes as she sobbed. "Why are you only blaming me?" She collapsed to the floor, crying that this was not only her fault. She buried her face in her hands and cried, crumpled in misery on the corridor floor. Just then, Lin Bai appeared, but he did not even slow down. He walked straight past her without even looking, completely ignoring her breakdown on the floor. He stopped a few steps away, still with his back to her. "The most I could do is keep my mouth shut and not curse you out," he said coldly. "But that doesn't mean I don't blame you." Those words stabbed into her heart like a dagger. "Don't you like me?" she whispered, her voice trembling. He only scoffed. Then he delivered the final, soul-crushing blow. "I must have been blind." Our girl was fiercely playing go with her new friend. Her friend was unbearably smug, practically trembling with self-satisfaction. Lin Ning could only sigh in frustration and admit that she had lost again. She pouted and announced that she was done playing for the day. Her friends simply laughed at her for being a sore loser and playfully tugged at her twin ponytails. Our poor heroine protested that if her hair fell out, it would all be her friend's fault. But her friend was absolutely ruthless. She blamed any possible hair loss on Lin Ning staying up too late. That hit a sore spot, and our girl lamented that she had stayed up studying for so long, only to still get a big fat 0 on the exam. She looked terribly dejected, but her friend just patted her head, pleased that she had finally come to her senses about studying. Suddenly, a classmate poked their head in and told Lin Ning that someone was looking for her. She looked up in complete confusion, and when she saw who had come, her jaw almost dropped. Her father was standing there, ordering, "Let's go." She asked in confusion where they were going. Just then, he dropped the bombshell. Her school transfer application had already been processed, and she was going home with him. Effective immediately, our girl was completely stunned. He had actually arranged everything without telling her first. She was almost about to cry, suffocated by the sudden change. But her father was completely unmoved, saying this school was not good enough and that he had already found her a better one. Powerless to resist, she could only clench her teeth, knowing she could not say anything. She rushed out of the classroom in a daze, leaving her father sighing at her behavior. He carried her school bag and followed her into the corridor, telling her to slow down, but she was just a walking cloud of gloom. She stayed completely silent. As she turned a corner, she nearly bumped into someone. It was him, that beautiful senior. Su Senator, he called her name with a worried expression. She immediately came back to her senses. She looked at him in surprise. He had already heard the news, because the school gossip network was faster than the speed of light, and he asked if she was really leaving today. She looked up at him, her heart shattering into a million pieces. All she could force out was a tiny, heartbroken yes. There was nothing she could do. She hurriedly said goodbye and walked away, leaving him and her father standing in the empty corridor. As she left the school, she could not help remembering how hard she had once tried not to make friends. Now, she finally understood why. Because it hurt too much. She left the school building that had only just begun to feel like a second home. She tried to stay composed, but all that filled her mind was Su Sen's gentle smile. Later that night, dinner was tense. Our girl barely took a few bites before announcing that she was full. Her mother gently coaxed her to eat a little more. She asked whether Lin Ning truly did not want to transfer schools. Lin Ning pretended to be strong and insisted that she was fine. She blamed her lack of appetite on not sleeping well the night before. But in her heart, she was thinking that her mother had already sacrificed so much for her. She soon found an excuse to leave the table. Once she left, her mother turned to her father and suggested transferring Lin Ning back to her original school. She admitted that she felt they were being too cruel to their biological daughter. But her husband's expression turned serious, and he revealed the true reason for the sudden transfer. He was worried their real identities would be exposed. Her mother proposed staying behind to take care of Lin Ning alone, but he immediately rejected the idea. He said it was too childish. His decision was made, and his wife could only watch in frustration. Meanwhile, Lin Ning tossed and turned in bed. She desperately tried to think of another way, a solution that would let her stay at the new school while also protecting her parents' jobs. But she soon realized she was being too naive. It was an impossible fantasy. As she gradually fell asleep, she imagined Su Sen's face and whispered his name in the dark. The next second, her eyes flew open as she realized what she had just said, her face burning red in the darkness. Just as she was thinking about him, her phone began vibrating wildly. Speak of the devil, it was Senior Su Sen himself, and our girl's heart immediately started doing the cha-cha. She quickly switched in her sweetest phone voice and happily said hello. Then, just like that, he hung up. Our girl was completely dumbfounded, staring at her phone in disbelief. This was ridiculous, way too impatient. She flopped onto the floor in a huff, sulking over his chaotic phone manners. Of course, he immediately called back. This time, she tried to act calm, pretending he had just woken her up. He instantly saw through her and asked if she had been sleeping well lately. She quickly burrowed under the covers, pretending to lie there comfortably, and told him she had been just about to fall asleep. He suggested talking tomorrow so she could sleep, but no, that was the last thing she wanted. She shot upright, completely awake, insisting she was not sleepy at all, glowing all over like an overexcited puppy. Now that she finally had his full attention, she asked what he wanted to talk about. He got straight to the point and asked if she wanted him to help her return to her original school. Our girl was so shocked she could not speak. Why? Why would you help me? She stammered. He was about to drop a bombshell on her, and her heart pounded with anticipation. He told her to focus only on delaying the transfer, and he would handle the rest, letting her return to East River High School. But she worried that if she missed more classes, her grades would fall. Without hesitation, he calmly told her he would take full responsibility. Then he delivered the final blow. I'll be responsible for your grades, so don't worry. Our girl was utterly stunned. She completely lost control and screamed into her pillow that he was the best person in the world. She was so excited that she started bouncing around on the bed. Amid the chaos of her self-celebration, she knocked over a glass of water, and he asked from the other end of the call what had happened. He sounded genuinely worried, so she quickly brushed it off, saying she had only spilled water on herself. He merely chuckled and called her an idiot. She pouted, but before she could argue back, he hung up on her again. This man was truly a menace. Meanwhile, at school, Su Sen began taking action. He walked straight into the office to speak with the teacher in charge. He pointed out that Lin Ning's solution method for one math problem was different from the one on the answer sheet. The teacher immediately became suspicious. Then how would you know? She asked. He delivered the sharpest line. I'm the one tutoring Lin Ning. He explained that he had taught her a unique and simpler method, and she was not stupid enough to forget it. That comment made our girl, sleeping several kilometers away, sneeze. She sat up, wondering who was talking badly about her. But that sleepy face was seriously adorable. Back in the office, Su Sen calmly asked the teacher to check the answer sheet again. She reluctantly agreed. And guess what? He was right. After seeing the evidence with her own eyes, the teacher was shocked, but she remained stubborn, claiming that this still was not enough to prove Lin Ning had not cheated. The answer was right in front of her, but rules were rules, apparently. So Su Sen proposed a new plan. Give her one chance and let Lin Ning. She would retake the exam to prove her innocence once and for all. The teacher finally gave in and agreed to submit the matter to the examination committee. As he left, even the teacher could not help being moved by his persistence and silently wished him luck. Su Sen left with a small, confident smile. The next morning, he called Lin Ning. She was still half asleep when she answered, and he immediately teased her for being a lazybones. She only sighed and accepted this new nickname, but he quickly got to the point. She needed to come to school for a retake. The news woke her up faster than a bucket of ice water. He explained that this was her chance to prove she had not cheated, then smugly asked if she was scared. Scared? Please. Lin Ning was not scared at all. She was practically thrilled. She was full of fighting spirit and already ready to crush this exam. She told him she felt like a soldier heading to the battlefield. He laughed and offered to pick her up, but she worried he would skip his own classes because of it. His solution was simple: take a sick day. She was shocked by his casual disregard for the rules. But in the very next moment, one sentence from him completely melted her heart. Nothing is more important than you, dummy. That was all the motivation she needed. She declared that the retake had to be today. After a bout of blushing and hesitation, she was already standing in front of her closet, trying to choose the perfect battle outfit. In the empty classroom, Lin Ning was the last one left, cramming at the last minute for the upcoming exam. She was completely focused, working hard through a mountain of practice. Questions. But she was not entirely alone. Su Sen stood at the door, watching her with a gentle gaze. Finally, after what felt like a century, she put down her pen. Teacher, I'm done. She proudly handed in the completed paper. The teacher smiled and told her to hurry home, since it was already late. Lin Ning walked out of the classroom, her small shoulders slumping. Sigh, she really was exhausted. After answering so many questions in one go, her brain felt like it was about to turn to mush, just as she was about to collapse. A gentle voice said, "You worked hard." It was Su Sen, who encouragingly patted her head. Then he suddenly pulled her forward, bringing her right up close to his side. He quickly grabbed her collar, stopping her from falling. Lin Ning froze completely, her heart pounding wildly in her chest. "Senior Su Sen," she stammered, utterly flustered. He panicked at once too, let go, and came up with a truly terrible excuse, saying her hair had tickled his nose. Look at this boy, desperately trying to hide the fact that he was blushing. The innocent Lin Ning only giggled, completely believing his lie, and said she would tie her hair up. Just like that, his heart trembled again. He had completely fallen for her, so he offered to take her home. As the two walked out, the sky decided to add a little drama to the night. A massive thunderstorm struck without warning. He quickly took out an umbrella, shielding them both from the sudden downpour. But a clap of thunder made Lin Ning scream in fright. He smiled and teased her for being afraid of a little thunder. She clutched his shirt, trembling all over, but stubbornly insisted that she did not want to be afraid of it either. Poor Lin Ning looked genuinely terrified. Another blinding flash of lightning sent her into a complete panic, and she almost jumped in fright. Without thinking, he pulled her tightly into his arms. "It's all right," he said softly. "Don't be scared anymore." She buried her face in his chest, seeking comfort from the storm. He asked if she could still walk, and she quickly nodded. When they arrived downstairs at her apartment building, he told her to hurry inside, since her parents were probably worried about her. She went up the stairs, clearly reluctant to leave his side. He watched her go, already starting to feel lonely, while thinking that soon they would be able to see each other every day. Then he inexplicably cheered himself on, only to grimace at his own awkwardness. He turned to leave, but his feet seemed glued to the spot. He sighed, wondering if he had been possessed by something. Just then his phone rang. It was her. He answered at once. On the other end, she sounded very frightened, explaining that her parents were not home and she was alone in the house. Without hesitation, he offered to come up and keep her company. Lin Ning paused, wondering whether that was really appropriate. But another huge boom from the sky made the decision for her. "Senior Su-san, please come up quickly." She really was hiding under the covers, looking utterly pitiful. He could only sigh. There was no way he could leave her alone in a situation like this. And so, he found himself sitting awkwardly in her living room. What a gentleman. He told her to go to sleep and that he would leave after she fell asleep. But she pouted and complained that the storm was too loud, so she could not sleep at all. As if on cue, her stomach let out a huge growl, and worse. She was hungry. "What do you have at home?" he asked, still the problem solver. In the kitchen, she watched him curiously. "Senior Su-san, you can cook?" "Only a little," he said with a shrug. "Oh no." She told him there was beef and tomatoes at home. He confidently announced that he would make steamed beef with tomatoes. She looked at him with utter admiration as he put on an apron and got to work. After several chaotic minutes, he brought out a steaming pot of something. At first glance, it did not look that bad, but his inner monologue was already declaring failure like a 5-alarm fire. He knew it was a complete disaster. The meat was tough and ridiculously salty. With a defeated expression, he carried the failed dish to the table. But Lin Ning was such a little angel that she still tried to comfort him, saying it looked quite delicious. Bravely, she picked up a piece with her chopsticks and took a bite. The taste was shockingly awful, like being struck by lightning, and her soul nearly left her body. This was even worse than the colic ginger soup disaster. She could not even pretend to like it. "It's not good, Senior Su-san," she said with a scrunched-up face full of disgust. She mercilessly asked him how he had managed to make food taste this bad. No mercy at all. But then she picked up another piece. "I will never forget this flavor," she declared, taking another bite, while he fell silent in shock. With her suitcase already packed, Lin Ning returned home and saw a scene both bitter and warm. Her father was there, but he was already preparing to leave. "Dad, are you going to work again?" she asked, her voice carrying familiar sadness. He gently patted her head and told her he would be back soon, and that she should stay at Lin Bai's house for a few days. This was a memory, returning to a simpler, more innocent past. Her father joked that with her amazing cooking skills, she would turn into a little pig. But another woman quickly cut in, saying Lin Ning had always been beautiful and only needed to grow up. Her father entrusted her to their care, asking them to look after his child. The woman agreed. Back in the present, Lin Bai was seething with anger, convinced that that brat Su-san was definitely up to no good with his precious girl. And speak of the devil, who should suddenly appear out of nowhere. None other than Senior Su-san himself, looking like an angel descending from the heavens. Lin Bai immediately panicked, reminding himself that he had promised Lin Ning he would be a little gentler. He put on the fakest smile you have ever seen and thanked Su-san for tutoring Lin Ning. The parents finally left, reminding their daughter to be careful. Lin Ning smiled brightly and promised she would take good care of herself. Her mother looked at her with pride. The next morning, Su-san was already waiting outside for her. Lin Ning was completely smitten, but the moment was ruined by the little demon of chaos himself, Lin Bai, who suddenly popped up and asked if he could hitch a ride. "Sunontaisen ritlid isili, driemon." Too ruthless. Lin Ning handed Susan the milk she had brought, and Lin Bai immediately started complaining that it was too unfair. And Su-san delivered the final blow, absolute silence. He ignored him completely. Ouch! Later in class, Lin Bai stopped Airshur and told her to meet him on the balcony after school. The girls in the background immediately started gossiping, thinking it had to be a balcony confession. On the balcony, Airshur waited there, her heart pounding. She wondered, could this really be the moment she had been waiting for all along? Lin Bai began to speak, making everything sound beautifully moving, saying she was beautiful and kind. He said she made him want to work harder just so he could stand by her side. She was completely flustered, thinking it was really about to happen. But then he dropped the bombshell. "I really can't believe it. So you were behind all of this, and Lin Ning suffered because of you." He stepped closer, his expression serious, and demanded that she apologize to Lin Ning. She froze completely, stammering that she had never thought things would turn out this way. But this boy was still in the dark, believing she was a good person who had only made a small mistake. He told her she could still keep being that good person. A fake grateful smile appeared on her face. He told her not to cry, saying Lin Ning would definitely forgive her. But hiding in the shadows was the real villain, Yun Xiaoran, who was already so angry she was about to explode. Why was she the only one being punished? In the teacher's office, the truth came out. The school had pulled up the surveillance footage, and the photos clearly showed Yun Xiaoran wandering near the examination room, but she still tried to deny it. The teacher was not buying it at all, pointing out that her answers in Lin Ning's paper were practically identical. Now that there was evidence, the school decided to give her 0 points in every subject. She was stunned, thinking it was only a small matter. When the teacher told her to leave, she finally broke down. "This isn't fair," she screamed, saying the real culprit had not been given 0 points at all. And then she did it. She sold out. The teacher was shocked, so they called Ershur in to hear what she had to say. The teacher bluntly asked whether she had been involved, and Ershur broke down, admitting that it had been her idea. The teacher slammed the desk hard, furious. She pointed out that Lin Ning had thrown the answers away, but Ershur only kept apologizing. She begged for forgiveness and promised she would never do it again. But the teacher had heard enough and told both of them to leave. An announcement came over the school broadcast. Yun Xiaoran and Ershur had both received disciplinary demerits for violating school rules. The students could hardly believe it. Their goddess was actually a cheater. But since it had been announced to the whole school, how could it possibly be fake? Yun Xiaoran walked alone down the corridor, now completely an outcast. Just then, someone called out to Ershur. It was Lin Ning. Ershur immediately began apologizing, saying she was sorry for making her suffer so much. But then she played the ultimate victim card, blaming everything on Su Sen caring too much about Lin Ning. She admitted that she had liked him for a long time. Lin Ning was still as generous as ever and thanked her for being honest. She even said she wanted to be friends with her, which completely caught Ershur off guard. For a moment, it seemed as though everything had been resolved. They laughed together, and Lin Ning reminded her that she might hear some gossip for a while. Ershur accepted her fate, saying now it was her turn to have people speak badly of her. But in the corner, Yun Xiaoran watched everything, consumed by rage. Everyone forgave Ershur, but not her. And in Lin Ning's heart, she thought that people who did wrong had to be punished. The expression on Yun Xiaoran's face said it all. This was far from over. And just like that, the chaotic friend group gathered together again, walking home after school. Tu Nana was still gloating over Ershur's downfall, giggling as she said the school would never let her get away with it. But Lin Bai, that killjoy, only said she was being too mean. She whipped around, completely offended, saying they had deserved it and that this was justice. He told her there was no need to be so harsh. Oh, that was the wrong thing to say. Tu Nana exploded completely, calling him annoying and reminding him how much poor Lin Ning had suffered because of them. She accused him of taking Ershur's side instead of standing with his own friends. Lin Ning tried to smooth things over, but it was already too late. Lin Bai froze, while Tu Nana had officially turned into a lip balm. He looked utterly panicked, not knowing what to do. Tu Nana had had enough and announced that she was leaving, then stormed off angrily. Lin Ning called her name, but it was no use. Tu Nana only waved perfunctorily and disappeared. As she ran, she fumed inwardly, wondering why that idiot Lin Bai was not chasing after her. Back with the boys, Su Sen gave Lin Bai a sharp-tongued smile and asked if he was happy now that he had made her run away. That made Lin Bai even more upset. He finally could not take it anymore and decided to chase after her, telling Su Sen to take care of Lin Ning. Lin Ning gave him a small encouraging pat, and he rushed off. Now, for the farce had truly run down the street, leaving only Su Sen and Lin Ning behind. Lin Ning shyly thanked her senior for everything he had done for her. He only looked at her with some confusion and asked why she was thanking him. She told him it was because she was really so happy. As they walked along the beautiful sunlit path, pure joy could be seen radiating from her. He offered to take her home on his bicycle. He assured her that next time, he would never let her be misunderstood again, so she would not need to thank him in the future either. Lin Ning was so moved, she could barely speak, her face blushing bright red. She returned home, but the peace did not last long. She found Lin Bai collapsed on her sofa with a pained expression. She asked what had happened between him and Tu Nana. He immediately fell apart completely, saying in a panic that Tu Nana was furious with him. Lin Ning gave him very reliable advice. He should apologize first. He only wailed that he knew but that was hard. The poor boy looked utterly defeated. The next day, he tried to approach Nana in class, but she gave him the coldest cold shoulder imaginable. He simply could not believe it. She treated him as though he did not exist at all. She picked up her lunch and walked straight past him without even looking at him, leaving him wondering if he had been dumped. His attempts to get her attention failed miserably, and he could not escape even during PE class. She only glared at him with eyes full of anger. He tried to pass the ball to her, and she immediately slammed it right into his face. Ouch! He sat on the ground in frustration, wondering what he had to do to make her forgive him. Later, someone covered Lin Ning's eyes from behind. It was Su Sen, and he told her to open her eyes. She opened them in surprise. He was holding a beautiful star-shaped necklace. He asked if she liked it. She shyly stammered that she did, and he smiled gently. He offered to put it on for her. She asked why he was giving her a gift like this, and his answer was simply the smoothest line. "I picked a star for you." Her heart gave a sudden leap. He leaned closer and fastened the clasp for her, his fingers brushing against her neck. The delicate necklace rested perfectly against her skin. She touched the pendant, completely smitten. The celebration continued at her birthday party, where Annie called everyone over to eat cake. Lin Ning ran over happily, surrounded by her friends. Everyone started noisily arguing again over what wish she should make. She closed her eyes and made a wish. It was a simple yet heartbreaking wish. She hoped her parents would come home, just as Annie told everyone to enjoy the food. The doorbell rang. Lin Ning got up to see who it was. It was a courier bringing a package for her. She took the folder back to her room and opened it, but when she saw what was inside, she froze in shock. Pure terror swept across her face like a wave. Hearing the commotion, Su Sen called her name, asking what was wrong. She staggered back into the dining room, pale and full of fear. With tears in her eyes, she cried out for Su Senator. Everyone rushed to her side, and she broke down sobbing, saying she did not understand why they had suddenly disappeared. Poor Lin Ning cried into a heap and collapsed to the floor. Annie picked up the fallen documents, while Su Sen tried to comfort Lin Ning. As Auntie read the report, her face turned deathly pale. It was a detailed report about her parents' work, and the latest development was terrifying. They were currently missing. Lin Ning rejected it completely, refusing to believe any of it. Through her tears, she said they had clearly always been fine, so this could not have happened. Su Sen held her, his heart aching. Seeing her in such pain, yet being powerless and unable to stop any of it, left him feeling utterly helpless. The cake sat quietly on the table, becoming the lonely centerpiece of the silent, empty room. But poor Lin Ning could not bring herself to walk in at all. She drew her hand back from the door, her heart aching as if it had been torn apart. Lin Ning looked in through the window and saw them, the two people who had unknowingly shattered her entire world. She gripped the curtain tightly, her knuckles turning white with despair. She was utterly disappointed in them, but she felt she had no other choice. After seeing all of that with her own eyes, how could she possibly keep pretending to be happy? Tears finally slipped down her face, and all she could do was whisper softly, "I'm sorry." The next day at school, Lin Ning was completely vacant, lost in her own sadness. Her best friend, Nana, noticed her hollow expression. She was clearly worried. Clenching her fists, she decided she could not let her friend keep suffering like this. With a loud bang, she slapped her hand down on the desk. Lin Ning was startled out of her daze. Nana pulled an absurdly exaggerated funny face, practically begging her, "Look at me." But Lin Ning only stared at her blankly, her eyes still hollow. Nana grew frantic and started tugging at her own cheeks, trying to force out a smile. "What am I supposed to do to make you happy?" she wailed dramatically. Suddenly, they heard a commotion coming from the corridor. The other students were talking about a fight, saying it involved the handsome senior Lin Bai. The moment his name was mentioned, Nana shot out like an arrow released from a bow, desperate to hear what had happened. Did they say Lin Bai? Her eyes widened in shock. "Something happened to senior Lin Bai," she shouted, jumping to her feet. On the basketball court, a group of people had surrounded Lin Bai, forcing him into a corner. The leader demanded that he apologize. Lin Bai gave a scoff. Apologize for what? He looked utterly dismissive. The thug sneered, "You made her cry, so you should apologize." Lin Bai was not buying it at all. "Just because I don't like her, and she cried, I have to apologize? What kind of logic is that?" Just then, Nana stormed in aggressively, pointing at him as she accused him and even called him a big bad wolf. Lin Bai froze the moment he saw her appear. Seeing an opening, the thug flew into a rage from embarrassment. He grabbed a basketball and hurled it at him. The ball cut through the air, aimed straight at Lin Bai's head. He had no time to react and could only brace himself for the impact. But in that instant, a hand suddenly appeared and forcibly intercepted the ball in midair. Lin Ning gasped, and Tu Nana's eyes widened in disbelief. The person who had arrived was none other than the Iceberg Prince. Su Sen, he said coldly to the thug. That's enough. He casually tossed the ball aside, his voice full of contempt. If you want to fight, I can keep you company. Lin Ning watched the situation grow more tense with worry. But Tu Nana had already had enough of this macho posturing. She exploded, screaming at them to stop. I'll tell the teacher. Do you want to be disciplined and ruin your college entrance exam chances? She pointed at them like a prosecutor delivering the final verdict. For a moment, the thugs were stunned by her chaotic yet forceful presence. Lin Bai merely curved his lips in an indulgent smile. But the thug in the lead grinned. Hearing you say that actually makes me want to get punished. And Su Sen added even more ruthlessly, why don't we all go to hell together? Tu Nana was terrified, and Lin Ning was also left speechless by this disaster that had completely spiraled out of control. The thug swung a punch, but Su Sen was already prepared. He grabbed the other boy's arm, moving fast and hard, and threw him directly onto the hard ground. All the other lackeys froze in shock. Su Sen looked down at the sorry mess on the ground. Do you still want to continue? The thugs scrambled away in panic, shouting empty threats as they ran. Su Sen coldly warned them to watch their mouths. The girls watching immediately began screaming over how strong and handsome he was, and even Lin Ning could not help feeling her heart skip a beat. Su Sen turned around to check whether Lin Bai was all right. Lin Bai thanked him, but Su Sen only smiled. Between us, there's no need to say thank you. A sincere and happy smile bloomed on Lin Bai's face. But of course, the farce was not over yet. A female student ran straight to the teacher's office and put on a performance worthy of a Best Actress award. Crying, she said Senior Su Sen had kicked a student. She even said he had kicked the student into the air, looking utterly terrified. The teacher believed her completely and immediately rushed to the scene. The girl watched the teacher leave, a smug expression appearing on her face. With a twisted smile, she thought, this is the opportunity you delivered to me yourself, so don't blame me. A basketball was snatched up, and the expression on that guy's face was pure chaos. He swung hard, smashing the ball toward the other side of the court. Lin Ning watched everything happen as if in slow motion, screaming for Senior Su Sen to be careful. The handsome silver-haired senior turned around, completely unaware that danger was flying toward his perfect face. With a bang, the ball hit him squarely in the head. He staggered backward, the impact clearly leaving him dazed. His blonde friend completely exploded. Lin Ning hurried forward, while someone nearby started shouting that it was a sneak attack. No kidding, Sherlock. She reached his side and asked in a trembling voice whether he was all right. He tried to act like nothing was wrong and waved it off lightly, but a dark, crackling energy suddenly burst out from his body. This was not a good sign. Poor Lin Ning widened her eyes in fear, realizing that something was seriously wrong. The next second, with a heavy thud, he collapsed. She shouted for someone to call an ambulance as he went limp in her arms. She held him tightly, her heart pounding wildly with fear and despair. In the blink of an eye, they were in the cold, merciless corridor of the hospital. She waited outside his ward, room 604. Inside, her beloved senior lay unconscious, while Lin Ning could only sit by his bed, drowning in guilt. She clenched her fists, her whole body trembling with worry. The door clicked open, and someone told her to eat something. It was the blonde duo, but Lin Ning had no appetite at all. She only wanted to leave because she could not bear to see him like this. The blonde friend completely failed to read the room and asked why she would not stay. His braided companion wisely told him to shut up. Lin Ning turned and left, thinking that with so much happening now, her depressed mood would only make Su Sen feel worse. The two of them could only watch her leave. He told his friend to let her go. She left the hospital alone and walked into the cold night. Then the weight of everything finally crushed her, and she collapsed by the roadside, crying her heart out. She had reached the edge of complete breakdown. She returned to her empty home. A lonely birthday cake sat on the table. She lit the single candle, a sorrowful reminder of the celebration that had never happened. She told herself softly that her birthday had already passed, but she still needed to make a wish. So she closed her eyes and prayed with all her heart. Her first wish was that her missing father and mother would be safe. Her second wish was that her dear Senior Su Sen would also be safe. Tears filled her eyes. She took a deep breath and blew out the candle. At that very moment, the door opened. It was Lin Bai, the blonde friend. He saw her walk away from the table. It was a picture of pure pain, and he froze in the doorway. Then he slumped down outside her room, crushed by overwhelming guilt. He blamed everything on himself, knowing that he had gotten Su Sen hurt and had only added another cut to her pain. He watched her disappear up the stairs. His heart ached faintly, and then he clenched his fists in anger at his own incredible stupidity. The next day at school was just as gloomy. Lin Bai was sleeping like the dead at his desk, clearly not having slept all night. Someone woke him up and said the teacher wanted him in the office. When he got there, the news waiting for him was that he was going to receive a disciplinary demerit. He exploded instantly, shouting that he was the one who should be responsible and that he alone should be punished. He was furious because Su Sen was also going to receive a disciplinary demerit. But the teacher only said coldly that witnesses had seen Su Sen fighting. Lin Bai completely lost control, roaring that they were clearly the ones who had been attacked first. He slammed a hand onto the desk, shouting about how unfair it all was. But the teacher only reprimanded him for his attitude. He simply could not believe it. Su Sen was still lying in the hospital, yet the school still wanted to punish him. In the end, in an act of total defiance, he roared that he did not want to stay in such a rotten school and then kicked the teacher's desk over. In the cold, white corridor of the hospital, Su Sen remained unconscious and force still inserted in his arm. Outside the ward, Lin Bai had sunk into utter despair, sitting there with his head in his hands. "It's all my fault," he murmured, guilt nearly swallowing him whole. But his self-recrimination was soon interrupted by a scolding from the teacher. She had originally planned to deal with them leniently, but now things were different. Now both of them would receive disciplinary demerits. And once Su Sen woke up, Lin Bai would also have to write a reflection immediately. Just then, Airshire approached him, concern in her voice. She told him that she had heard about the disciplinary demerits and tried to comfort him, saying that they could still be removed later if he behaved well. But Lin Bai was completely dispirited and only forced out a faint Airshire entered the ward and immediately began scolding him for skipping class. He muttered that he did not want to go to school, but she struck him with the truth. If Su Sen knew that his injury had only caused Lin Bai to give up, he would feel even worse. Those words finally seemed to wake him up. He raised his head, a glimmer of hope flashing in his eyes, and thanked her with a small but sincere smile. She smiled brightly and told him there was no need to thank her. But the turmoil was far from over. Another girl stormed in angrily, furious because she had been sent to deliver food. She screamed that she was being treated like a slave. She also said Lin Bai had gone way too far, then ran off in a huff. Meanwhile, another girl was impatiently waiting for her takeout. Somewhere else, an adorable little cat sat beside the garbage. Back at school, the matter had already blown completely out of proportion. A notice was posted. Su Sen had received a disciplinary demerit, while Lin Bai had been expelled because he had also insulted a teacher. The students talked among themselves, saying he had acted badly because he was unhappy about the demerit. But Lin Ning had been there at the time. She knew that was a complete lie, while the real bullies were getting away with it. She gritted her teeth. "No, I have to find a way." She suddenly stood up from her seat. She accidentally bumped into another student and hurriedly turned back to apologize. Her friends looked at her in confusion, but Lin Ning was already moving with a purpose. There had been so many witnesses at the time. She would definitely be able to restore the truth. She ran through the corridor, her mind racing. The person who had started the trouble had not been punished, while the person who had been bullied was being punished instead. This whole thing was wrong. She rushed into the teacher's office. The teacher was shocked to see her, but Lin Ning had not come alone. She had brought an entire group of witnesses and announced that she had come to report the situation. She stated that the version the school had heard was completely wrong, and that she could bring even more students to testify. To prove it, the teacher tried to suppress her, saying that the punishment had already been decided. But Lin Ning fully entered tough mode and directly asked, "Is the school going to wrong innocent students just because it failed to investigate properly?" The teacher warned her to watch her attitude. But Lin Ning immediately gave an emotionally sincere speech about how much she loved the school and how hard she had worked to become a good student. She said she did not want the school's reputation to be stained by this injustice. In the end, her words worked. The teacher compromised and agreed to contact the school board to launch a full investigation. Lin Ning straightened her posture and promised that, with the teacher's support, she would prove their innocence. She bowed deeply and even apologized on Lin Bai's behalf for his rudeness. The teacher said he should come apologize in person, which suddenly gave Lin Ning a flash of inspiration. She promised that Lin Bai would come apologize personally and asked the teacher to give him a little encouragement. The teacher was utterly stunned by the girl's courage and intelligence, even thinking, I really want a daughter like her. Of course, another teacher insisted on ruining the moment. She teased that she would have to find a boyfriend first, earning an immediate sharp shut up. Later, Lin Ning tried to persuade Lin Bai to apologize, but he was completely unwilling. I don't want to go, he said coldly. She scolded him, telling him that being this stubborn would only hurt Su Sen more. That was the wrong thing to say. Lin Bai exploded, yelling at her to stop wasting time and stop putting pressure on him. Poor Lin Ning was too shocked to speak. He said she was annoying and shoved her out of the room. Behind the closed door, his whole body trembled as he thought, I just don't want you all to get dragged into this trouble too. She wanted to help, but in his eyes, it felt like a burden. He leaned against the door, filled with frustration. He was tormented by one thought. From the very beginning, he should have borne all the responsibility himself. Why? Why did you all have to get involved? He murmured softly, his heart weighed down with guilt. Her friends tried to persuade Lin Ning, but she knew Lin Bai was so stubborn right now that he would not listen to anyone. In frustration, she suddenly thought that perhaps there was one person who could persuade him. She found the school goddess, Tu Nana, and asked her to help make Lin Bai apologize. But Tu Nana only looked at her sadly and said it was impossible. She explained that although Lin Bai seemed easy to get along with, he was actually very lonely and very stubborn. If he did not think he was wrong, he would never lower his head. Lin Ning was shocked. She had never known that he had this side to him. It seemed Tu Nana understood him better than anyone. But then Tu Nana dropped a bombshell. If you're the one who talks to him, he might understand. Lin Ning tried to laugh it off, but Tu Nana was extremely serious. She leaned closer and said the 4 words that changed everything. He likes you. Tu Nana explained that she had always known Lin Bai's feelings for her were only admiration, not true love. But his feelings for Lin Ning, those were real. She asked, have you really never felt it? Lin Ning's face instantly turned bright red. She admitted that she had sensed something, but she had never dared believe it was real. With this new discovery and a renewed sense of purpose, Lin Ning prepared to begin her mission. She was now full of fighting spirit. Operation Save Senior Lin Bai officially began. She peeked into the ward, and sure enough, just as she had expected, he was there. He was sitting by his friend's hospital bed, keeping watch over him. After a while, he leaned back in the chair and fell asleep. Lin Ning could not help feeling a little mischievous and gently fiddled with a strand of his hair. Sunlight spilled in through the window, landing perfectly on him. He moved slightly and murmured, Nana, and she immediately bristled. She called him an idiot. He jolted awake, completely unable to understand why she had suddenly appeared. She went straight to the point and told him to go apologize to the teacher. Otherwise, he really would be expelled. But he refused outright. I'm not going. She could hardly believe it. Even if it's for me, you still won't go? She asked. But he only told her to go back. She tried one last time, begging him to go. But his answer remained cold and firm. I'm not going. That became the final straw that broke her. Her heart shattered completely, and she told him she was done caring. From now on, I won't care about anything related to you ever again. Then he dealt her the cruelest blow. You never had the right to care in the first place. He told her that no matter who came to persuade him, it would make no difference. Lin Ning trembled with anger. Don't think so highly of yourself, she shouted. Who would want to care about someone like you? She told him to do whatever he wanted, and that from now on, she would never bother with him again. Finally, she slammed the door and left. Lin Bai lay on the bed, looking deeply pained. But his friend Su Sen suddenly woke up. You're awake? Lin Bai shouted in surprise. Su Sen gave him the advice he needed most. If you regret what you said, it's not too late to make up for it. Meanwhile, Lin Ning was on the phone. Crying, she talked about what a jerk Lin Bai was. She sat on the stairs, regretting that she had ever dragged Nana into this. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. It was a courier asking if she was Miss Lin Ning and saying there was a package for her. She took the document and signed for it. She immediately tore open the envelope. Inside, there was only a single sheet of paper. On the paper was one word, safe. She turned the paper over and discovered there was something on the back. It was a photo of her parents. They were still alive, and they were safe and sound. She was so happy that she completely lost control and could only roll around on the bed laughing. A moment later, her phone vibrated on the bed. It was a call from Su Sen. But poor Lin Ning was already fast asleep, exhausted by this emotional roller coaster. She clutched the note tightly, finally gaining a moment of peace. It turned out that the person who had brought that note to her was none other than Lin Bai. He quietly watched her sleeping face for a moment. He gently patted her head and wished her good night. The next day at school, she ran into Su Sen. Seeing him discharged from the hospital so soon, she was utterly shocked. He merely sighed. "You never check your phone, do you?" She immediately panicked and admitted that she had gone to bed early last night, then rushed out that morning and forgot her phone. He asked if her head was okay, then gently patted her head again and reassured her that he was fine. The moment was a little sweet and also a little awkward. She decided to flee into the classroom first. Just as she turned to leave, the class bell rang. Oh no, she was going to be late for that demon teacher's class. Su Sen simply smiled as he watched her rush away in a panic, calling her little pumpkin. She sprinted down the corridor, wanting only to charge into the classroom before the teacher arrived. But because she did not even look up, she crashed headfirst into someone. She hurriedly apologized, but a hand suddenly grabbed her wrist and stopped her. A voice asked, "Lin Ning, don't you remember me?" She looked up, completely bewildered. When she heard the name Chang Zhe, our heroine was utterly stunned. This pretty purple-haired boy questioned how she could forget him, but her mind was filled with only one thought: new phone. "Who are you?" He refused to accept that reaction at all. He took something from his pocket and said she should at least remember this. He held up a small bracelet, and our heroine asked timidly, "Is that mine?" He confirmed that it was hers, and in that instant, her memories came flooding back. Wait, that name, that bracelet, could it be? The memories hit her like a truck. He was the little demon from her childhood who loved pulling her hair more than anything. And he did not just pull it, he even snapped her favorite hair tie. Then he had the nerve to run away while laughing, leaving her crying like a broken dam. That little demon had also tied her shoelaces together under the desk, making her fall flat on her face. Every time he committed one of his crimes, he would leave a mark at the scene, and he would even mock her when she cried. He was practically insane. All those traumatic memories surged back at once. I remember now. She trembled all over and backed away in terror. The source of her childhood nightmares was standing right in front of her, and she had to think of a way to escape immediately. "Class is starting," she shouted, then shot away like a rocket. And so, she left him standing there alone, covered in dust, and looking confused. But her nightmare had only just begun, because the teacher announced a piece of news. A transfer student had joined the class. Of course, it was him, Chang Zhe. The girls in class immediately looked like they were about to drool, already starting to fight over him and declare that he was theirs. Our heroine's friends were the only ones who were still somewhat clear-headed, roasting everyone for being way too thirsty. Well, almost clear-headed, because even her friend had to admit that he really was handsome. But then Chang Zhe dropped a bombshell, asking the teacher if he could sit beside the only person he knew, Lin Ning. Our poor heroine's soul nearly left her body. The teacher agreed, and Chang Zhe revealed a smug little smile. His evil plan had succeeded. The other girls immediately began gossiping. Why did all the handsome guys gather around Lin Ning? They complained that Lin Ning got all the good things. "Girls, you can have this one." At least one student spoke up for her, saying that Lin Ning was charming and had a good personality too. But the girl who had been throwing shade at her only muttered that she was too envious. Chang Zhe happily sat down beside our terrified heroine. She instantly built an energy barrier that said, "Don't talk to me," but he merely asked if she was ignoring him. He put on an aggrieved puppy dog expression, pretending to be hurt because she still held a grudge. But his inner monologue was absolutely wicked. He was not worried at all, because he would have plenty of time to tease her in the future anyway. Finally, the bell rang and class ended. But her freedom was extremely short-lived, because Chang Zhe immediately leaned in front of her and asked what was wrong. He tried to show off his charm, saying she was still as cute as ever. But all she could think was, he had come back just to turn her life into a living hell. He moved closer and asked if she knew why he had transferred to this school. She nervously asked why, and he announced with a dazzling smile, "For you." Her brain short-circuited instantly. This was a declaration of war. He had definitely come to torment her. And look who was standing behind them, wearing a devilish smile. The new challenger had entered the arena. This blonde girl, Tu Nana, complained to the white-haired senior that another buzzing fly had appeared around Lin Ning. Senior Lin Bai simply looked at her, and she gave an irritated snort. She shoved the broom into his hands and stormed off. In the corridor, Lin Bai looked at his younger sister or cousin sitting together with that new boy. He He mistook her panicked expression for happiness, and his heart sank. His phone vibrated, pulling him out of his gloomy thoughts. Our heroine happened to look up and saw him standing at the doorway. But in the blink of an eye, he was gone. She stared at the empty doorway, completely confused. Changze asked what was wrong, but she only brushed it off. She thought she had probably seen wrong. Meanwhile, Lin Bai was on the phone, and he was very unhappy. Someone told him that their mother was coming home. He coldly snapped back, "That woman is not my mother." Then he hung up. The family conflict was suffocatingly thick, and he angrily clenched his phone. He could not believe that the other party had abandoned him back then, only to suddenly appear again now. "If you wanted to leave me behind, then you should have left me behind completely," he thought. "Why come looking for me now?" Later, some students saw Lin Bai with another boy and gossiped that Lin Ning had even hired a bodyguard after school. The torture continued. Changze snatched our heroine's school bag, waved it back and forth in front of her to tease her, then pretended he was going to return it. But just as she reached out to take it, another hand suddenly snatched the bag away. It was her white-haired knight on a white horse, Lin Bai. He told her to get in the car. It was time to go. She happily agreed, ready to escape this chaos. The relief on her face could not have been more obvious. Changze could only watch them leave, his face darkening, and he realized who his new love rival was. Our heroine found a mysterious bag of steamed buns on her desk. Surprise! It was from Changze, who was trying hard to look charming. But our heroine immediately refused, saying she had already eaten. Just then, her friend Tu Nana popped up like a hungry little goblin and asked if she could eat the rejected breakfast. To save face, Changze generously gave the buns to her. Tu Nana did not hesitate for even a second and immediately began devouring them. She ate happily, completely carefree. But suddenly, her world went dark. Oh no, something terrible had happened. Tu Nana clutched her stomach and cried from the pain. They hurried to the infirmary for help, but the nurse waiting for them was none other than Changze, and he was holding a terrifyingly huge syringe. He gave Tu Nana a sinister smile and told her not to be afraid. This chaotic boy even told her to take off her pants right away, clearly enjoying himself far too much. Tu Nana tried to stall for time. She was scared out of her wits. Changze lost his patience, and our heroine, trying to be a good friend, could only hold Tu Nana down. Then it happened, a swift injection to the butt, and Tu Nana let out a heart-wrenching scream. The poor girl was traumatized. Suddenly, the door was shoved open, and Tu Nana's cousin Lin Bai rushed in. Changze actually dared to make a should gesture at him, while Tu Nana was howling like a banshee. The poor girl had already dissolved into tears. Lin Bai and our heroine were trying to comfort her, while the culprit himself, at that moment, slowly strolled over. Tu Nana's grief instantly turned into pure, absolute fury. She lunged at Changze, screaming that all of this was because of his damned steamed buns. Changze panicked completely and swore it was the bun shop's fault, even saying he would go tear that shop down. Lin Bai muttered that luckily our heroine had not eaten them, but she began to suspect that those buns had been meant for her in the first place. Lin Bai told Changze to stop pulling such childish pranks. The poor guy looked utterly heartbroken, and his face was full of regret as he turned to walk away. He tried to apologize, admitting that he had never imagined things would turn out like this. But Lin Bai exploded, realizing that all of this was Changze's doing. He grabbed Changze by the collar, while our heroine, that little instigator, confirmed, that's right, it was Changze who made Tu Nana sick, and caused Lin Bai to get beaten too. She revealed a tiny, devilish smile, practically ordering him to strike. Lin Bai drew his arm back, preparing to throw a punch. But Tu Nana stopped him, begging him not to fight. Lin Bai immediately stopped like an obedient puppy. However, Changze took the chance to grab our heroine's wrist. He insisted that the steamed buns were not a prank this time. Although he had bullied her in the past, he admitted that he had only done those things to get her attention. But she did not accept that at all and told him not to do it anymore. She turned and left with Tu Nana. She had already had enough of today's farce. But he was not finished speaking. He grabbed her hand again and desperately called her name. He was just about to confess his feelings, but of course, Senior Su Sen appeared at that exact moment. Lin Bai had no choice but to catch Tu Nana, who was about to faint, and muttered that our heroine was a love-struck idiot. Although Tu Nana was in terrible pain, she still had enough strength to fire back at her cousin. Su Sen helped her up, and the two of them left together. together. Only Changze was left standing there alone, utterly defeated. Later, Su Sen suddenly dropped a bombshell, telling her that he could not take her home today. She asked in confusion whether something had happened. Then he explained that from now on, he would no longer be able to take her home. Our poor heroine was so shocked she could not speak. After school, she and Lin Bai watched from a distance as Su Sen got into an outrageously luxurious car. In the distance, Su Sen looked back at her one last time. Before he got into the car, the driver said that a girl had been watching him the whole time, but Su Sen's reply was ice cold. "I don't have friends." Our heroine could not help worrying about him. Lin Bai merely told her that he would be fine and told her to get in the car. And in the shadows, the heartbroken Chung Zhe watched them leave, wishing he were the one taking her home. Our heroine calmly rejected his bicycle, saying she would go back on her own. The boy desperately called her name, but she did not even turn her head. And who was watching this scene from inside the luxury car? It was our male lead, Su Senator, his driver, acting like a troublemaker, asked if the young master liked that girl, but Su Sen only impatiently told him to shut up. He returned to the cold, empty mansion and announced to his father that he was back in a tone as enthusiastic as getting a tooth pulled. His father immediately began lecturing him, reminding him to greet his stepmother. But Su Sen refused to play along, thinking it was absurd that his every move had to be reported to that woman. He merely gave a cold laugh and turned to leave. This enraged his father, who shouted for the little bastard to stop. "What exactly do you want?" Su Sen asked, his voice as cold as ice. The demand was simple and infuriating: apologize to Aunt Shu. His stepmother tried to play peacemaker, but his father was not buying it, convinced that he had to teach his son a lesson. He roared that Su Sen did not even understand the most basic manners. Just then, Su Sen struck back hard. He pointed out that his father had never been by his side to teach him anything, so it was already too late to say these things now. After that verbal slap came a real one. His father's hand struck his face hard, and a fresh bruise appeared on his cheek. Su Sen glared back, fury burning in his eyes, and asked, "Was I wrong?" His father seemed to hesitate for a moment, something flashing through his eyes, but it was already too late. Su Sen had had enough. He slammed the door and rushed out into the night. In the end, he wandered aimlessly to a rooftop plaza, looking especially lonely amid the vast city. He watched a mother doting on her young son, the sight like a cruel reminder of the warmth he had never had. That scene drove the knife in his chest even deeper. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through his dark thoughts. Someone called his name. He turned around, completely shocked. Lin Ning stood there, like a beam of light in the night. "Lin Ning," he asked, his voice almost a whisper. She explained that Annie had asked her to come out and buy soy sauce, and then her gaze immediately locked onto the obvious bruise on his face. He brushed it off and said it was nothing, wanting her to leave. But our heroine could feel his pain. She told him that she was worried. He tried to change the subject, teasing her about the upcoming exam and telling her she should worry about herself first. But she did not fall for it. She said she was not worried at all because he had promised to tutor her and she fully trusted his genius-level grades. Then she gently pressed him again, asking why he was not going home. And then he threw out a heartbreaking truth. "Home? I don't have a home." Our heroine's heart broke for him. She told him it was okay if he did not want to talk about it, but she was worried about him being outside alone so late. So, like a true angel, she invited him to go back to Annie's house with her. He was startled by the suggestion and became a little flustered, pointing out that bringing a boy home in the middle of the night was not very appropriate. Our pure and adorable heroine completely failed to grasp the implication. Her head filled with question marks, and then she finally realized what he meant, her face instantly turning bright red. He chuckled and admitted that he had only been teasing her. He called her an idiot and said he had planned to walk her home anyway. He walked ahead, and she hurried to catch up. Just then, a car sped past, and he instinctively pulled her closer, holding her hand to protect her. And he did not let go. When they arrived at her warm little home, Annie was very happy to see him and immediately invited him to have dinner, even asking him to stay the night. But her brother was not so pleased, questioning how she had gone out to buy soy sauce and ended up bringing back a whole living person. Only then did she suddenly realize that after everything that had happened, she had completely forgotten to buy the soy sauce. Su Sen calmly picked up the conversation and promised that he would go buy it with her tomorrow. She was so embarrassed she could barely eat and could only hide behind her bowl to cover her flushed face. She secretly peeked over her rice, only to discover that he was not eating at all and was simply staring straight at her. Our heroine wanted to help, so she volunteered to wash the dishes. Meanwhile, the The third wheel in the background looked as if he had seen a ghost. He asked Su Sen whether he had argued with his father. His spider sense told him something was wrong. Like a wise sage, our heroine told Su Sen that adults had their own worries too. She said that as long as people still cared about each other, everything would be all right, and he seemed to truly take it in. She gave him a little encouragement, telling him to make up with his family tomorrow, and that everything would be fine. Her bright smile seemed to work. He nodded quietly, looking a little calmer. But the blonde boy was furious, thinking that this little girl had hit his friend right his weak spot. Just as the atmosphere had finally eased, Su Sen's mother appeared with terrible news. His father had just called and was on his way, intending to personally drag him home. Our heroine tried to give him one last bit of encouragement, but it was already too late. The doorbell rang. He had arrived. Su Sen's expression immediately darkened. Standing at the door was not only his father, but also his stepmother. That woman apologized for disturbing them so late at night, but Su Sen exploded completely, demanding to know why she was here. She said she was worried about him, but he immediately snapped back that he did not need her concern. This made his father angrily scold him for having no respect. Su Sen's reply was as cold as ice. She doesn't deserve it. He turned to leave, no longer wanting to deal with this farce at all. But his father grabbed his arm and told him to stop making a scene. The entire situation was so tense, it was suffocating. Our heroine watched from the side, utterly shocked that senior Su Sen could be like this. His stepmother pleaded with them to stop arguing, playing the concerned peacemaker. Sununtay sin only smirit. How hypocritical. This only made his father even angrier. The melodramatic family mess officially followed him back home. In his father's house, his stepmother, Aunt Shu, knocked on his bedroom door, wanted to talk with him. He coldly told her he was going to sleep, but she still barged in, insisting on clearing up his misunderstanding of her. His only response was, "Get out." She swore that she had nothing to do with his mother's death, but he did not believe her at all, saying that now that his biological mother was gone, there was no way to prove anything. Then she actually had the nerve to claim that she and his mother had once been good friends. That became the final straw. He completely lost control and gave her one last warning, telling her to leave, or he would no longer show any mercy. His father stepped in and told her not to disturb his rest. But the moment his father turned away, she smiled brightly and sweetly asked her husband whether he wanted a late-night snack. Su Sen heard everything clearly from inside his room. So furious, he was almost driven mad. He collapsed onto the bed, tormented by his thoughts. Everything before his eyes was filled with memories of that once happy family shattering into pieces. At the same time, the loving couple was lying in bed. His stepmother brought up wanting a child of her own. She complained that Su Sen hated her and said she was a woman with needs too, but her husband only cut her off coldly. The next morning, she was all smiles again. His father told her to call Su Sen down for breakfast. But when he knocked and opened the door, the room was completely empty. Su Sen was gone, and his father began to panic. He hurried downstairs to tell his wife that Su Sen had run away from home. She put on a shocked expression, but the moment he turned around, a sinister smile appeared on her face. She thought, wasn't this a good thing? This woman was rotten to the core. The next day at school, our heroine was told that Su Sen had a visitor. Unsurprisingly, the person who came was his father, and he was clearly there to cause trouble. The two immediately started arguing. Su Sen dropped a bombshell, saying he had already moved into his mother's old apartment, and said his father had obviously found it much easier to abandon his own son than to leave that woman. His father flew into a rage, claiming he had returned to the country only for Su Sen's sake, but our male lead merely let out a light, sarcastic laugh. He said Su Sen was being willful. Back in the classroom, our heroine and her friend heard a loud slap from the hallway. It was the sound of a palm striking a face. Her friend quietly told our heroine that she knew everything that had happened, but this farce was not over yet. Su Sen looked straight into his father's eyes and declared that from now on, they had nothing to do with each other, warning him not to touch him again. His father raised his hand again to hit him, calling him a bastard, but our heroine could not stand by and watch. She rushed forward and stood between them, begging his father to calm down at school. The school hallway was already full of murmurs, and the girls had all seen Su Sen and his utterly awful father. Our heroine stood beside him, listening to the whispers around them, her expression gradually turning cold. His father gave him one final warning. If he walked out now, he should never come back again. But Su Sen had had enough. He shot back that he had never planned to return to that home anyway. He thanked Lin Ning for staying by his side, but she only called him an idiot, while her heart ached unbearably for him. "Why didn't you dodge?" she cried, saying she simply could not bear seeing him hurt. But all of this was actually part of his plan. He told her he needed to provoke his father and see his truly ugly nature clearly, so he could completely crush whatever hope he still had left for him. He revealed that he had always known his father had never truly loved his mother. His mother had loved him deeply, but his father was nothing more than a master deceiver, pretending to be devoted for years. The two sat on a park bench as he continued telling this heartbreaking past. The illusion of a happy family finally collapsed completely when his father's mistress appeared, revealing the monster underneath. In his painful memories, his mother clung desperately to his father's leg, begging him not to leave. She refused to let go, her voice filled with despair. And, standing at the doorway, watching everything, was the young, terrified Su Senator. He ran to his mother's side, trying to persuade her to leave with him and go find his maternal grandfather. But his mother panicked. She grabbed him and desperately made him keep quiet, afraid that her own father would learn the truth. She covered his tiny mouth, muffling his sobs, desperately trying to hide her own humiliation. He could never understand why his elegant and beautiful mother had fallen in love with such a cruel and blind man. Back in the present, Lin Ning was stunned. She had never seen such a frightening expression on his face, and her heart ached until it felt like it would break. Instinctively, she reached out and gently placed her hand on his arm. Her touch seemed to pull him back from the darkness. He immediately apologized for frightening her. He asked whether, after seeing his dark side, she would regret knowing him. He admitted that he had always been jealous of her and Lin Bai's loving family, because he had always been so lonely. He buried his face in his hands, completely overwhelmed by emotion. Just when he had almost managed to forget those painful memories, his father had appeared again. Our heroine was at a loss, desperately thinking of how to comfort him. He stood up to leave, needing to be alone for a while, but she would never let that happen. She chased after him, calling his name. Then she hugged him tightly from behind. She admitted that she did not know what the right thing to say was, but she had to let him know that he was no longer alone. She said, "You have me, you have Lin Bai, the teacher, and so many classmates who admire you. We will all stay by your side." She promised him that. He was so shocked that he fell silent, but then he showed a small, genuine smile and thanked her. She told him to forget all the unhappy things. Looking at her, he felt a sliver of hope and promised to try. Later, the group arrived at Su Sen's new place. It turned out to be a somewhat old, gloomy-looking mansion. Iduo was shocked by its size, but still could not help complaining that it looked very old. The inside was full of dust, dim and eerie. Poor Lin Bai was already starting to get nervous. Suddenly, a little mouse darted past, and the scene instantly spun out of control. Lin Bai screamed and jumped into Iduo's arms like a damsel in distress. The two shouted in terror and clung tightly to each other. Meanwhile, our heroine watched their chaos from the side, completely speechless. She merely tugged at Su Sen's clothes, trying to get his attention, but he was already dizzy from all the screaming. After surviving this mouse apocalypse, the four of them got to work cleaning the entire mansion. They unexpectedly worked together very efficiently, and by the time they finished, everyone collapsed exhausted onto the floor. Lin Bai was the first to surrender, announcing that he was too tired to go home and would sleep there tonight. Iduo immediately agreed. Then another brilliant idea flashed through her mind. They should throw a party. The boys could not muster any enthusiasm at all. Su Sen saw that Lin Ning was very tired and suggested doing it another day, but our heroine pulled herself together and insisted on having the party right then. So Iduo dragged Lin Bai out to buy supplies. Leaving our heroine alone beside Su Senator, the two sat on the sofa, falling into an awkward yet subtle silence. Our heroine blushed fiercely, desperately trying to think of something to say. He gently asked her what was wrong. She stammered that she was covered in sweat after cleaning and wanted to go home for a quick shower, but he naturally suggested that she could just shower there. Her entire face instantly turned bright red. "But I don't have any clothes to change into." With a blank expression, he revealed a miniature reaction. Just like that, her brain completely short-circuited. She panicked so badly that she became incoherent, while he still asked innocently, "What's wrong?" Su Sen lent our heroine his smallest shirt. Good heavens, even so, it was still absurdly oversized for her petite frame. She completely panicked, stammering as she took the clothes from him. He even placed the clothes on a soft pillow before handing them to her. What a gentleman. After announcing that she was going to take a bath, our heroine confidently walked off in the exact opposite direction. Truly painful to watch. He gently caught her and turned her around, laughing at how silly she was. Her face was so red that she did not dare look at him. Finally, she soaked in the warm bathtub, enjoying a moment of pure happiness after all the chaos outside. Su Sen waited patiently outside, but his thoughts drifted somewhere completely different. He looked out the window and sank into a painful memory from the past. We see the young Su Sen crying while holding his dog. The dog had already passed away. His mother tried to comfort him, but his mind was filled only with the fear of being left behind alone. She told him not to be afraid of parting, and those words would later wound him all over again. But that little boy, far more mature than his age, asked the question that frightened him most. "Mom, will you leave me too?" She promised him that she would never leave him, but it was a promise she could not keep. That memory was too vivid. He whispered to the empty room, "Mom, I'm back." He remembered how, on her deathbed, she told him that she had no choice but to leave. She gave him a string of instructions, telling him to take good care of himself, because from then on, she would no longer be able to do those things for him. And he agreed. His tiny heart was heartbreaking. The memory crashed into him like a train. He drank all the water in his glass in one gulp. Just then, a loud crash suddenly came from the bathroom. A scream echoed through the house, and a tear slipped from the corner of his eye. He called out Lin Ning's name, the fear of loss overwhelming everything in his heart. Our poor heroine had fallen to the floor. She had accidentally slipped and broken a glass bowl. He rushed to the door and anxiously asked what had happened. She was mortified and shouted for him not to come in, insisting that she had only slipped. He hesitated, respecting her privacy while also worrying desperately. And worse, the scrape on her knee was not light. He called out again, asking whether she had put on clothes. She screamed back that she was completely naked. He cursed under his breath, wondering where on earth the housekeeper was. As it turned out, Tu Nana was busy having the time of her life at the supermarket. With Lin by, Su Sen, out of patience, made a bold move and pushed open the bathroom door. Our heroine was terrified, but he calmly announced that he had already put on a blindfold. And he really had. This man was simply legendary, a blindfolded knight in shining armor. He held out his hand, signaling that he would help her up. She could only stare blankly, her brain completely fried by the scene. The blush on her face came back, and with a vengeance. He gently took her hand and, despite being unable to see anything, guided her with unexpected confidence. She timidly asked whether he could help her get a towel. He agreed and began feeling his way through the bathroom in darkness. Our heroine was so nervous she was about to faint. Then she asked for a bathrobe too. He continued this blind mission, feeling along the wall as he moved forward. But disaster struck. His slipper stepped onto a wet, slippery spot. She screamed his name, and he fell. He managed to brace himself and landed on the floor in front of her. She let out a sigh of relief. But at that exact moment, Tu Nana walked in and saw a blindfolded man collapsed on the floor, kneeling at the feet of a girl who was barely dressed. And who was behind her? Lin Bai. He cheerfully announced that everyone was staying over tonight. Tu Nana's instincts immediately kicked in, and she instantly blocked his way. When he asked why, she said expressionlessly that Lin Ning was wearing nothing. The boy's brain instantly crashed. His protective cousin instincts went completely berserk, transforming him into a little demon ready to avenge his cousin's innocence. That blonde fool rushed in, demanding to know what our heroine and Su Sen were doing. Su Sen truly lived up to being an ice prince, calmly denying everything. But his brother immediately exposed him, pointing out that his face was terribly red. Our heroine hurriedly tried to testify for him, but her own face was just as red. Just then, the love rival girl suddenly appeared, showing off the huge table of food she had prepared for Senior Lin Bai and Su Sen. Our heroine could not help feeling a little impressed by the elaborate setup, but the blonde girl only smiled smugly, thinking that Su Sen was so considerate toward her. Girl read the room. Our poor heroine was a little flustered and tried to eat by herself. Meanwhile, Lin Bai had had enough of the love rival's endless chatter and directly stuffed cake in her mouth to shut her up. She whined and complained that he should be gentler, and he gave the most sarcastic apology I have ever seen. Later that night, the chaos in the house finally settled down. Our heroine sat alone on the swing, lost in thought. What happened to the chaotic duo? Oh, they drank themselves completely drunk and passed out on the floor. Suddenly, a voice cut through the silence. It was Su Sen, who had found her in the quiet garden. She admitted that she could not sleep and had just come out for some fresh air. He sat down beside her and confessed that he could not sleep either. Our heroine brightly suggested that they look at the stars together. Taking this opportunity, she asked a question that had been lingering in her mind. She wanted to know which university he planned to attend, but he honestly said he still did not know. He turned the question back to her and asked what plans she had. With complete sincerity, she admitted that she wanted to get into the same university as him. A gentle smile appeared on his face, and he told her she would have to work hard then. Then he gently patted her head. Our heroine completely melted. Some time passed, and suddenly we arrived at the airport. A mysterious and extremely handsome man had just arrived, announcing that he was back. The next morning, a new day began. Lin Bai was sleeping like the dead, hugging a sock against his face. The blonde girl woke up with a huge yawn. When she turned her head and saw that he was hugging her shoe and sock, she instantly broke down and let out a piercing scream. He woke up groggily, wondering what the noise was about, until he realized what he was holding. He immediately shouted in disgust for her to move her stinky feet away. She instantly kicked him back, shouting that he was clearly the one who had grabbed them. Our heroine interrupted the morning chaos, announcing that Su Sen had personally made breakfast for them. Just then, the doorbell rang. The blonde girl volunteered to answer the door. Our heroine and Su Sen both wondered who would be visiting so early. When Su Sen saw that the visitor was Jean Lee, his eyes widened in shock. He called out. The person who had come was the handsome stranger from the airport. The two silver-haired men unexpectedly embraced each other warmly. Our heroine was stunned. She had never seen Su Sen so enthusiastic and emotionally expressive. The man gave a charming smile and introduced himself. He was Jean Lee, Su Sen's cousin. The blonde girl was already dazzled, while Lin Bai looked utterly unimpressed. Jean Lee merely smiled smugly, showing off the good genes in their family. But this friendly reunion soon turned serious. Jean Lee revealed that he had come to help Su Sen restore his status as a member of the Jean family. Su Sen immediately refused, saying he had no interest. That was until Jean Lee mentioned that it was their grandfather's final wish. He still wanted to refuse, but those words finally reached his heart. Final wish? What happened to grandfather? He asked in a trembling voice. Jean Lee brought devastating news. Their grandfather was near the end. His cousin gave him a direct order. Grandfather wanted him to return, whether he was willing or not. Back at the vast Jean family mansion, someone reported that Su Sen had returned. He saw his grandfather lying weakly in bed. He was coughing so hard he could barely breathe. Grandfather, Su Sen said, his voice full of worry. The old man grabbed his hand. He was overjoyed to see him, tears welling in his eyes as he tightly held his grandson's hand. He began apologizing tearfully, admitting that he had wronged Su Sen and his mother. He confessed that back then, because of his pride, he had heartlessly cut ties with his own daughter, causing her to suffer terribly and eventually fall into depression. The old man wanted to make amends for everything. He wanted to bring Su Sen back and restore his status as a member of the Jean family. From now on, his name would be Jean Su Sen. Even more dramatically, he had also hired a lawyer to ensure that Su Sen would inherit half of all his assets. Su Sen was utterly stunned by the offer. But of course, everything came with a condition. He had to agree to marry the daughter of the Bai family, and the image of our adorable girl flashed through his mind. I refuse, he said immediately, without the slightest hesitation. His cousin begged him to be rational, but Su Sen was firm. He rejected the inheritance, and he rejected this impossible marriage. His grandfather asked whether he was certain. Yes, he was certain. The old man kept pressuring him, asking whether he would insist, even if it angered him to death. Su Sen could only apologize, but he absolutely refused to back down. This made his grandfather fly into a rage. He scolded him as a disgraceful, heartless little bastard, exactly like his mother. But then the old man suddenly sat up, looking perfectly healthy. He wiped away his fake tears, exposing that the entire thing had been an act. Su San was completely dumbfounded. He had actually faked being sick. His grandfather merely snorted coldly and said this had been the only way to trick him into coming home. "You are completely unreasonable," Su Sen shouted, anger surging inside him. But the old man calmly explained that there was an important matter he needed Su Sen to handle. He claimed he was old and wanted to retire, but none of his other children were qualified to be his heir. He called in a large group of men. They entered the room one by one, looking like a row of eliminated boy band members. "These are all your brothers," his grandfather announced. "I have decided to choose an heir from among you." He even planned to arrange some kind of special training for all of them. When Su Sen turned around, wanting to leave this chaotic family reunion, his grandfather's face darkened. "Grandfather, I'm really not interested in your inheritance," he said. But the old man struck back with a ruthless line. "But my inheritance is interested in you." He grabbed his grandson's shoulder and forbade him from leaving. Since he had come back, he could forget about leaving. Su Sen tried to argue, but his grandfather turned and left, even calling him stupid. The door slammed shut in front of him. He pushed at it, only to find a wall of maids blocking his way. He was trapped, and his thoughts immediately drifted to our girl, Lin Ning. At the same time, she was sleeping quietly in bed. Her phone suddenly vibrated and woke her up. It was Senior Su Senator. She answered at once, asking if he was all right and when he would be back. She adorably admitted that she had run into some trouble and wished he could be by her side to help her. He had no choice but to tell her the bad news. He might not be able to return for a while. Our girl panicked and asked what had happened to him. He said it was hard to explain, and her face instantly filled with disappointment. To soothe her worries, he gently made her a promise. "I'll call you every day." She had never expected that at all. Blushing, she agreed and said, "You absolutely must not forget me." She clutched her phone tightly, while on the other end, he only gave a soft laugh. "All right." But elsewhere, a storm was brewing. A new target had appeared. Some suspicious figures were plotting, saying that since that lucky old man refused to die, they would make his descendants pay his debt for him instead.